Taboo by Axolotl 222. Hey, Pip. 1 second, Pip replied. Sorry about that, Pipsqueaks, but it looks like I have to get going. Until next time, Pip, Pip, hooray! Pip sang her outro with her usual gusto before turning her phone off. She tucked under her wing with a sigh before making her way across her bedroom. Pip opened the door to find her sister on the other side, looking mildly excited. Hey sis, what's up? Nothing much, Zip said with a smirk. Oh? Oh, now? Bad time? Well, not really, I guess, Pip said with a weak smile as she rubbed her knee. I guess that stream was getting a little long anyways. Maybe one of these days you could have your fans watch us. Bet they'd get a kick out of that. Zip, don't joke about that. Zip chuckled as her sister scowled. Oh come on, I was only kidding. It's not funny, Pip retorted. Do you know what would happen if they found out? We'd be ruined. Neither of us could ever show our faces in this city again, and after I've been working my tail off to fix the damage a certain Sun Pony caused when she decided to crash my concert. Zip flinched, her ears flattening as she suddenly became interested in the tiling on the floor. Pip sighed. I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. It's cool, it was a bad joke anyways, Zip muttered, her gaze still downward. She suddenly felt Pip's wing drape over her shoulder, pulling her into a hug. Come on, I know you hate it when we fight, and besides, Zip lifted her head as she patted her on the back. She couldn't help but match Pip's smile with one of her own. Live streaming really builds up an appetite, you know? Cloudpuff was sitting on Queen Haven's throne, taking a well-earned nap after a long day of flying after birds. Beside him were 2 members of the Royal Guard, Zephyr's Heights' elite, bravest, most disciplined and loyal citizens, sworn by an oath to the very last breath to protect the family. Hey Zoom, you gotta see what these ponies just did on Clip Clop. Thunder thrust his phone into his companion's face, shattering her stoic demeanour instantly. Zoom chose not to dignify his antics with words, instead opting for an annoyed grunt and an eye roll, just when the throne room's doors opened, causing the stallion awkwardly stash his phone and snap into a salute. Pip Petals trotted into the room with an unusual spring in her step as her sister followed close behind. Cloudpuff woke from his nap and flew across the room. Pip leaped into the air and grabbed him in a hug. Hey there little guy, did you miss me? She said, scratching him behind the ears as he licked her face. Zip chuckled, then turned to address the guards. Evening, Thunder, Zoom. Just letting that the 2 of us are going to be using the private room again. You know the drill. The 2 nodded in understanding. In the meantime, Pip had landed back on the ground, trying to set Cloudpuff down, only for him to fly up into her face, letting out a pleading whimper. Oh! Pip cooed. He doesn't want us to go. Well, I guess we could bring him along, Zip suggested. Wait, really? Don't see why not. Maybe he'd even like getting in on the action. Zip! Pip shouted, her face changing from pink to red as she pouted. Do you have to word it like that? Yes. Pip rolled her eyes and playfully punched her in the shoulder. You're insufferable, you know that? And you wouldn't have me any other way. The sisters' laughter echoed as they stepped into the hall behind their thrones, only to abruptly be silenced by the sound of the door closing behind them. Sometime later, and after getting forced to watch more clip-clop challenges than Zoom would have ever wanted to see, the door opened again, revealing 2 very tired yet satisfied Pegasi. Cloudpuff stumbled out behind them, immediately rushing to his seat and unceremoniously falling asleep. Ugh, I feel so full. I have no idea how you could even walk after all that. Zip smiled. Guess all that flight practice is finally paying off. Whatever she was about to say next was interrupted by a loud yawn. Okay, I guess I'm more tired than I thought. Think I'm gonna go to my room and chill for a bit. That's fine, Pip said with a groan as he stretched her neck. I think I'm all tuckered out for the evening anyways. Zoom watched as the two left, chewing on her bottom lip in thought. Hey Thunder, she said after a moment. Thunder already was staring at his phone when he heard her. Yeah? You ever wonder what they are doing back there? Thunder's gaze shifted from his phone to the other guard pony. He frowned. What do you mean? I mean, they've been going back there about every other day for the past few months or so. They never say what they're doing beyond having some alone time. They're always weirdly excited when they go in, and they leave looking happy. You aren't a little curious about what they're up to? Never thought of it that way. I guess I haven't been paying too much attention to them. Figures, Zoom mumbled under her breath. They're probably just working on that weird friendship magic thing they keep talking about. It's probably no big deal. Yeah, you're probably right.
You don't know what is it we're hiding. You don't know it's not fair. All you know is, darling, that we're faking. You don't know it's not fair. We're all having fun, bathing in the sun. We're all building castles in the sand. We're having fun, we're having fun.
Hey, Zoom, you gonna what? Thunder cut himself off mid-sentence as he remembered that his partner had taken the day off. Oh, right. Guess that means I'm just talking to myself here. Once again, there was no response. Thunder sighed and continued scrolling through his phone. He realised that he had already seen the video he was watching at least twice before and turned his phone off. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to try and focus on guard duty, he thought. Zoom was always getting on his case about how he needed to pay more attention to these things anyway. Thunder smacked his lips together, the quiet noise just barely managing to break the silence. He managed to stay still for another moment or so before he began to fidget with his hooves. Eventually, he let out an annoyed groan. Oh my gosh, this is so freaking boring, he thought to himself. Thunder then remembered the hallway behind him, where the Royal Sisters kept their private room. He thought back to the conversation he had with Zoom last week. Sure, the Royals had always demanded to have at least some privacy, and Thunder could understand why they would want a place to hide from the public eye. But hadn't they promised more government transparency after the coup? Did private rooms count? Thunder supposed he could do a quick check on them, just poke his head in for a bit, ask if they're alright. He was sure they wouldn't mind. The door to the hallway was protected by a password lock. Thunder frowned as he stared at the keypad in confusion. Then he entered the Queen's birthday and it opened with a soft click. Thunder stepped into the hallway, thinking back to the time Zoom complained to the Queen about how unsafe it was to use the same password for everything. Of course, since she had one of her photo shoots later that evening, Queen Haven had simply brushed her off. Thunder froze mid-step, staring at the door at the end of the hall for a moment. Should he be doing this? Was it right to intrude on the princesses just because he was bored? Thunder's train of thought was interrupted by a giggle coming behind the door. Clearly the sisters were fine. Have fun with what?
Oh.
Was that moaning? Curiosity overtook Thunder. As he slowly crept towards the door, he noticed it was slightly ajar. Come on, Zip! You have to let me try for once. What? Don't know about that, little Pip. Don't see how a little thing like you could even fit it all in your mouth. Hey, I'm not little, and you of all ponies should know I could swallow it all in one gulp. Fudge! Thunder was now standing directly behind the door, now to engage with the conversation on the other side, to care about whether or not spying on them would be tactful. Unfortunately, the change in air pressure due to his approach caused the door to swing open. Inside was a tiny room about the size of a garden shed. Inside was an old and tattered love seat. in which sat two startled sisters who seemed to be in the middle of... "Oh my stars," Thunder said. You two? Look, every pony, just calm down. Let's not make this a bigger deal than it is." "No big deal. Oh, this is terrible. My pipsqueaks, they're going to think we're freaks." "Oh, for the love of Pete, Pip, it's not a big deal. Mum even tried last week and said it wasn't too bad." "Easy for you to say. You don't even have a PonyTube account. He's going to talk and they're going to want to lock us up." "Like I keep saying, society has evolved past that now. I'm sure if you just explained why you like..." "I can never show my face anywhere ever again. Unless we have him locked away in the dungeons before he can talk." "Pip, is that pineapple on your pizza?" Thunder stammered, pointing a hoof at the dish sitting on the coffee table near the love seat. "Oh, what's the use? I'm a freak! A freak!" Pip curled up in a ball, rocking back and forth as she sobbed. "Hey, come on now, you're not a freak," Zip said as she draped her wing over her sister. "You just like to eat weird foods, that's all." Thunder blinked, unsure of what to say. Zip turned to face him and sighed. "After we met Izzy, she had us try all these unicorn recipes. One of them was pineapple pizza, and ever since then we were hooked. Pip was too worried every pony would think that she's weird for liking it, so we paid a chef in Bridlewood to mail us pizzas twice a week." "But, I mean, of all the things you could put on a pizza, why fruit? You mean like tomatoes?" Zip deadpanned. "Those are fruits?" "Never mind. The point is that Pip shouldn't be afraid of what ponies think about her eating habits. I know I shouldn't care, but I can't." "Well, I guess it's not the weirdest thing ever put on a pizza," Thunder thought out loud. "See? He doesn't even think it's that weird," Zip said. Pip sniffled and wiped her nose with a hoof. You're right," she said eventually. Slowly she climbed off the love seat and onto her hooves. She turned to face Thunder, a look of shame upon her face. I'm sorry about wanting to lock you in the dungeon." "Poof," Thunder said as he waved his hoof dismissively in the air. "It's no big deal. Your mother always wanted to have us thrown in the dungeon for one reason or another. At least until we threw her in the dungeon," he thought. "So, we're good?" "Yeah, we're good." Pip smiled. "You know," Zip said, "this could make an interesting video for your pipsqueaks." "Oh my gosh, you're right," Pip said as she clapped her hooves, beaming with excitement. Suddenly she gasped. "We could do a mukbang!" With that she leaped into the air and with surprising speed flew past Thunder, likely heading to a recording studio. "She wants to do a what now?" I'll tell you some other time."
What is it we're hiding? You don't know, it's not fair. All you know is, darling, that we're faking. You don't know, it's not fair. We're all having fun, bathing in the sun. We're all building castles in the sand. We're having fun, we're having fun. We're all having fun, bathing in the sun. We're all building castles in the sun. We're having fun, we're having fun.
Fluttershy Hacks Film Fiction by Pony Thunder. "Do it, Fluttershy," encouraged Twilight, her face cold as ice. "Hack them." "Okay, I'll try," Fluttershy replied meekly, inspiring zero confidence in the crowd of 5 spectators behind her. Rainbow Dash placed her hooves up onto the back of Fluttershy's swivel chair with enhanced lumbar support, stumbling briefly for balance. Yeah, Flutters, make them pay for what they've done. Okay, she replied as she put her hooves onto the keyboard to begin typing. A few moments later, however, she stopped. Or maybe I could just give them a really stern warning? Applejack slammed her hoof onto the desk with a thud that shook everything on top of it, almost spilling Fluttershy's cup of tea. No way, no how. What they've done just ain't right. You might as well call me the element of justice, because that's what needs to be... Ugh. No way, no how. What they've done... No way, no how. What they've done just ain't right. You might as well call me the element of justice, because that's what needs to happen right here, right now. I must say I agree with Applejack on this one, dearest Fluttershy, added Rarity, who was sitting in the corner of the room whilst filing her hooves. Normally I'd be against these sorts of vindictive escapades, but this is just too personal. Right, Pinkie Pie? Right! Vengeance! Whee! Pinkie Pie replied as she spun around in another chair. Okay, here we go. Fluttershy said as she placed her hooves back onto the keyboard. She quickly shifted her gaze toward the monitor, eyes focusing inward and peering directly into the screen. She was in the zone. Fluttershy first located the web browser icon and double-clicked it, accidentally opening 2 instances to her annoyance, and then closed the second one and moved the cursor to the search bar. Her hooves rapidly tapped against the keyboard at a blazing rate of 12 words per minute, filling the room with clicks and clacks as the rest watched their master at work. Almost there, she muttered under her breath, typing the remaining characters of her hacking spree into the search bar. She then hit the enter key with a satisfying click, and every pony shifted inward to watch as the screen displayed the fruits of her labour. I'm in, said Fluttershy, leaning back in her chair. The top of the page displayed a colourful logo on the left side, with the following text slightly above it. https://www.filmfiction.net/. Filling up the rest of the screen were various images of ponies and other creatures from Equestria, alongside bits of text that appeared to describe them. Twilight's mouth was agape. You mean there's more of them? I thought there was only the one. Oh, for Celestia's sake, said Rarity. I'm starting to think we have other issues now. It's worse than we feared, said Applejack, her eyes scanning over the pictures until one popped up that caused her to recoil in disgust. Is that me? And me! Exclaimed Rarity, aghast. Displayed prominently on the screen was a slightly saucy picture of Rarity and Applejack and some accompanying text. When Rarity pays a visit to Applejack, the two quickly realise they have more in common than they realised. Bah ha ha ha! Bellowed Rainbow Dash, crying from laughter. Fluttershy, you have to click on that. No, you ain't. Applejack quickly stumbled over Fluttershy in an effort to divert the cursor away from the inevitably embarrassing content, causing the web browser to click on something else entirely at random. Honestly, Rarity said after regaining her composure, the grammar in that description is what irks me the most. Can any pony just write whatever drivel they want on here? Another photo and story description appeared out of nowhere. Oh my, Fluttershy said, blushing and covering her eyes with her hooves. Rainbow Dash suddenly went red from embarrassment. That's not real. That can't be real. Applejack got to her hooves and belly laughs. It sure looks real to me. It's not. Right, Fluttershy? I mean, it can't be. Can it? You and me? Fluttershy's face was hidden deep within her mane, uncertain of what to think about seeing the raw visual of something she'd always wanted but had been too terrified to ever dream about. Okay, said Twilight. These aren't the stories we're looking for. We need to stay focused, every pony. She continued whilst eyeing a similar photo with herself pictured prominently near the bottom of the screen, hoping no pony would notice. Fluttershy, can you use your hacking skills to locate the perpetrator? Fluttershy reluctantly came out of hiding behind her mane, quickly hitting the back button on the web browser. Yes, I'll try. Fluttershy moved the cursor onto the magnifying glass symbol and clicked on it. What's our query? Pinkie Pie? Said Pinkie Pie. Everyone looked at her. What? I just want to see what they write about me. We don't have time for that, Pinkie, said Twilight, moving forward. Try the author's name. That should get us close. Fluttershy typed it in and hit the enter key once more. At the top of the screen was precisely what they were looking for, the thing that was causing irregularities in causality, rifts in time and space, and utter confusion and panic throughout the land of Equestria. Twilight scanned it quickly. That's it. That's the one. That's the story we must be stuck inside. Fluttershy clicked on it. A new screen appeared with the title of Fluttershy Hacks Film Fiction and a short description below. Applejack cocked her head sideways. Well, I'll be. That's a picture of you just a minute or so ago, Fluttershy. This is so confusing, said Rainbow Dash. I don't understand what's going on anymore. Just click on it, said Twilight. We need to figure out a way to get rid of it, so things can go back to normal before it's too late. Fluttershy clicked on the first and only chapter and waited as the screen loaded. They all huddled together around Fluttershy and looked at the screen, beginning to read the story. Zero confidence in Fluttershy? Said Applejack. This author isn't very nice. Honestly, said Rarity. I don't really speak that verbosely, do I? Vindictive escapades? I wouldn't ever say something like that. Oh, I suppose I would. Did. Will. Oh, for Celestia's sake. Please make this horrendous nightmare end. A fluffy pink unicorn suddenly pranced into the room from atop a rainbow and gave Pinkie Pie a hoof bump on the way out. Fluttershy, said Twilight, I know we're asking quite a lot of you, but do you think you could hack the author's account? Maybe if we can alter the story, there's hope of us escaping this nightmare. I can try, I suppose. She navigated to the login page of the website and typed in the author's username. But we'll need to hack the password. Any ideas? How about said Rainbow Dash. I bet they'd have a stupid password like that. Fluttershy typed it in, and the author's name appeared at the top of the page. It worked! Okay, I have a good idea, said Twilight. Why don't we alter the story so that we guess the author's password on the first try? We've been up this for hours now. Oh, Twilight, Twilight, said Rarity. We can't make it that simple. What kind of plot development is that? There's no conflict, no intrigue. No. It must be a brilliantly executed literary masterpiece, and nothing less. I changed it, said Applejack after typing away at the keyboard while Rarity finished her monologue. Rarity sighed. Fine, I suppose we can do it that way. No pony wants to read hours worth of trial and error, I suppose. Okay, said Twilight. Now we need to find a way to end this story in such a way that it resolves all conflict and plot holes. Otherwise, well, we're going to be stuck here forever. Fluttershy scoffed. Good luck with that. It's rife with inconsistencies and pointless dialogue. Honestly, it's almost like the author just wrote it through in one shot and did minimal editing afterwards. Pure mediocrity. Whilst the others were distracted, Pinkie Pie, suddenly intrigued by the possibilities presented by the blank canvas in front of her, climbed over Fluttershy to make some clever edits to the story prior to that present point. Pinkie, said Twilight, her head rearing back, what are you doing? Don't you realize that an inadvertent mistake could cause anything to happen? A smile grew across her face. Anything? Pinkie Pie typed another sentence into the story. After typing it, she suddenly had the memory of hoof bumping a fluffy pink unicorn in her mind. Rarity sighed. Now any pony who reads this is going to wonder where the hay that came from. I like apples, Applejack suddenly exclaimed jubilantly. Wait, what? Why did I say that?
Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows.
Pinkie Pie made a few more edits as well. All of these alterations to past parts of the story aren't getting us anywhere, said Twilight. We need to erase this story somehow, without sometime also erasing our own existence. She pondered out loud. I've got it! I'll just write something after the current point in this story, which is dictating everything I'm saying at this very moment. Wow, that is really weird. It's almost like it knows what I'm going to say next. Whoa! She exclaimed while suddenly moving to her left, then appeared intrigued and entertained at the same time. Weird. Anyway, Twilight continued as she moved in front of the keyboard. If I make an addition after this line of dialogue that gives me power over the continuity of the story, I should be able to finish it, and it will be like nothing ever happened. Stop! Shouted a future version of Twilight, who had just appeared out of an interdimensional portal. Wait, that's not what I wrote, said the present form of Twilight. I know, replied the future form of Twilight. You have no idea what I had to go through to undo what your addition caused. This story would have been about 10 chapters long had it not been for... The future version of Twilight suddenly vanished into thin air, with another one taking her place. Don't listen to her. You need to manifest a time machine, go back in time and... Similarly, that future version of Twilight vanished and another one took her place. Ugh, this is getting old. Just don't make any more additions like that, okay? It doesn't work. Trust me, I've tried hundreds of times. Good luck, by the way. Existence has no meaning or purpose. The nth future version of Twilight disappeared into thin air, leaving every pony speechless and unsure of what to do next. This is getting too random, said Pinkie Pie. Like, even for me. I've got an idea, said Rainbow Dash as she nudged Twilight out of the way. Let me type at the keyboard. Rainbow Dash suddenly had double hri Wigningsspan and was now able to perform an ultra suprenoic rainbow. Rainbow Dash studied her wings. Hey, what gives? Why didn't my addition work? This is why grammar and spelling is important, darling, said Rarity. Let me take over from here. She hit the enter key a dozen or so times in a row, creating a massive blank space at the bottom of the text box. Now we have a buffer zone to give this story some real plot. Rarity, seizing the opportunity to provide a sense of style and creativity to the literary work in front of her, began typing at the keyboard. It was an odd and mysterious evening in an undisclosed location. Rarity found herself in quite the predicament, but was confident that she would be able to discover a way to solve it. After all, she always did. But first, she had to... Okay, that's enough, said Twilight, highlighting the several paragraphs Rarity had written and deleting them. Darling, exclaimed Rarity, could you not have at least hit the save button? I put my heart into that. We've got bigger issues right now, said Twilight. We're stuck in a causal loop of pointless shenanigans. Can't you see what's going on? We're all taking turns at the keyboard as a way for the author to pad their story and provide interesting bits to read. Interesting, Rarity said with air quotes. Applejack put her hoof up in protest. I haven't done much of anything interesting yet, except provide humorous quips and country charm, I suppose. Honestly, sometimes it feels like I'm just here in the background to bring a sense of realism to y'all. Regardless, it seems we're out of ideas, said Twilight, except maybe one more. Perhaps if we don't do or say anything, maybe things will just go away. Oh, do we have to? Asked Pinkie Pie. Yes. Okay. Every pony was silent and unmoving for several seconds, and then several seconds more. In fact, they remained silent and unmoving for an impressively long duration of time. The silence filled the room silently as nothing continued to happen. Simultaneously, they had their own unique train of thought with regard to the situation that they found themselves in. Twilight, for instance, was attempting to determine a logical way out of this seemingly impossible predicament, utterly failing to do so. Rarity was upset, feeling as though her recent actions were a bit more exaggerated than usual for some reason. Rainbow Dash was starting to get bored, silently wishing that she could be doing literally anything else. Applejack was becoming annoyed as she began to realise that her main function in the group was essentially to keep them in line. Fluttershy realised she hadn't spoken in several paragraphs, but was actually totally okay with that. And lastly, Pinkie Pie thought about the meaning of existence and eventually convinced herself of hard solipsism. Silence permeated the room for several hours as the six of them pondered and pondered, hoping that this nightmare would end. But it would not. It couldn't. The very premise of the story created a paradox that could not be resolved, leaving the author and evidently the characters within the story with no choice but to ramble on and on and on, trying everything in hopes that an interesting ending would simply come to them somehow. So instead, they chose to ramble even more. "This isn't working," said Twilight, breaking the vow of silence. "Phew," said Pinkie Pie. "I was getting really tired of thinking about nothing as hard as possible, and I came up with some weird stuff. Like, have you ever wondered if we're what's not real? Or if only I'm real and you're all just figments of my imagination? Or if we're all brains in vats? Or if everything I'm saying right now are just words in a story?" "They are," said Twilight. "We're trapped in our own fan fiction, remember?" "Oh, right, never mind." "Ugh," Rainbow Dash sighed. "We need to get out of this. I am dying." Suddenly, Rainbow Dash fell to the ground, her eyes wide and hoof across her body, not breathing. "Fluttershy, change the story, quickly!" exclaimed Twilight. "Oh my!" she shrieked, scrambling towards the keyboard to type. Moments later, Rainbow Dash began breathing of boredom. She coughed several times before returning to her hooves. "What in Tartaras just happened?" "You bit the dust," said Applejack. Okay, said Twilight, hyperventilating. "Now we know that we need to be extra careful with our words. Good to know. Does any pony have any other ideas?" "I've thought of something in the past few hours that I think might work," said Rainbow Dash. "Fine, but let me type it, darling," said Rarity. "Whatever," said Rainbow Dash. "Try typing in 'Everything was resolved perfectly.'" Rarity typed it in. Immediately, the problems of world hunger were solved. There were no more wars, and everyone lived a peaceful utopian existence. "Did it work?" asked Twilight. "I don't think so," said Rarity. "Our words are still showing up on the screen." Twilight pondered. "Well, let's undo that change then. It might cause us problems later on." The world and all its problems returned to the way they were before. "It seems like there's no way we can fix this," said Twilight. "Except if we just, I don't know, delete it or something?" "Delete it?" said Applejack. "But wouldn't that, make us not exist?" "To be completely honest, I don't know," replied Twilight. "But at this point, I don't know what else to try." "Do it, Twilight," Pinkie said flatly. "Nothing has any purpose or meaning anyway." "Well, I certainly wouldn't protest," said Rarity, sighing. "This mediocre piece of writing doesn't deserve to be read. Is that too harsh for my character? I don't know anymore. And do I really sigh that much for Celestia's sake?" Rarity sighed, then scowled as the words at the beginning of this sentence appeared onto the screen, then pulled back aghast at what seemed to be an invasion of her own thoughts. Suddenly, Discord appeared with a poof of magic behind them. "Who wrote that in?" asked Twilight. "That last thing we need is Discord to be involved in this mess." Oh wait, as the audiobook reader, I think I'll read that again to make it sound more grammatically correct. "Then the last thing we need is Discord to be involved in this mess." A quill and paper magically appeared in Discord's claw and paw, respectively. It was I, Princess Twilight Sparkle. I am the one writing this story. Twilight pondered hard for a moment. Really? Poof, no, he replied, poofing a comfortable couch into existence to lounge on. I'm just here to watch the show. Creatures like me have a seventh sense for these kind of shenanigans. You mean you don't know why you're here? Can't you help somehow? Asked Applejack, Pinkie Pie counting on her hooves behind her. I never know why I'm anywhere, and my chaotic magic only applies to this universe, I'm afraid, said Discord. Whatever chaos magic created this is beyond me, surely. For instance, has any pony questioned the fact that you've been using a computer and that Fluttershy of all ponies is supposed to be a hacker? I suppose not, replied Applejack. Come to think of it, I don't even know what a computer is. What the hey is going on? How did I get here? Why can't I remember saying anything? And what's a hacker? Inquired Rainbow Dash. They sound awesome, but I don't even know why. Rarity looked around the room. Also, where's Spike? Poor fella, Discord said solemnly, a bouquet of flowers held over his heart. He probably didn't make it through the editing process. And come to think of it, said Applejack, looking around rapidly, where the hey are we? Fluttershy's cottage? An underground bunker? All I know is that there's a computer, a desk, some chairs. Obviously setting description isn't this author's strong suit, Rarity said snidely, and while we're at it, there's a well-known rule of literature called show don't tell you might be interested to know about. Obviously, setting description isn't this author's strong suit, Rarity said snidely, and while we're at it, there's a well-known rule of literature called show don't tell you might be interested to know about, Rarity continued, loudly talking upward toward the ceiling. A cold and ominous chill went down her spine shortly afterward. However, as if she had offended someone listening to her criticisms. Rarity, who are you talking to? Asked Applejack. A moment of brilliance came to Twilight. I know how we fix this, she exclaimed, ignoring everyone else again. All we need to do is point out every unbelievable aspect of this story so far, and things should return to normal. Sounds plausible enough, said Discord. You can start by removing me, I suppose. Although I'd appreciate it if I weren't simply used as a brief cameo to drive the plot further. But what are you going to do? Discord poofed away, somehow conveying apathy in the way he did so. Okay, Twilight's mind raced for several moments. Now let's move backward. What happened before Discord appeared? We were talking about deleting this story, said Rarity, adding another bit under her breath, if you can call it that. And that doesn't make sense, right? Twilight asked rhetorically. If the story deleted itself, then we wouldn't have been able to edit it, so we won't delete it, or rather didn't delete it. What happened before that? We solved all the world's problems, but our own, said Fluttershy. And that's ridiculous as well, continued Twilight. That sounds more like a medium effort joke, more than anything else. Before? We didn't do anything, for hours, said Pinkie Pie, laying flat and sprawled out on the floor, staring upwards. And I had an existential crisis. Right, exclaimed Twilight. And that doesn't make any sense either, because we all know Pinkie Pie could never sit straight for several hours. It's true, she said dejectedly, except for that one time when I did exactly that. But hey, for all I know, you're all not real, and I'm just a figment of my own imagination. And what happened before that? Twilight continued, too excited to reach a solution. Just a bunch of random occurrences, essentially. Nothing about them made any sense, and they only lasted for what? At most a couple paragraphs? Oh, and we should probably censor the password too, I just realised. Twilight edited the story so the author's password would no longer be visible, then scrolled to the top of the page. Is that it? Every pony looked around, expecting something to happen. Did it work? Asked Applejack, looking up at the ceiling for no apparent reason. Are we free? At the top of the screen was a bar with several buttons on it. One of them said edit and the other said publish. No, Twilight said, dejected. Nothing changed. Fluttershy, who had been silent for a long time, had a sudden realization. I know how to end this, she said with confidence, resuming her position at the computer and moving the cursor slowly towards the publish button. The only way out is to share this story with the world. Whoa, are you sure? Asked Rainbow Dash. I'm not sure they're ready for whatever this is. What if it doesn't work? Asked Applejack. What if we stop existing? Fluttershy noticed Twilight pondering and gave her time to speak before doing anything. It's plausible that allowing the story to reach its most natural state of being might cause the causality loop that we created by opening it in the first place, said Twilight. After all, what good is a story left untold? Of course, the worst case scenario might be that telling the story would implode the universe. But even worse than that, added Rarity, what if it's not well received? What if they hate it? What if they think my character is horribly written? That's a risk I'd be willing to take, replied Twilight. I'd consider retracting that bit of dialogue if I were you, Rarity muttered in response. Fluttershy took the heated moment to interject into the conversation. I'm going to do it. Maybe it's whoever's writing this story, or maybe it's actually me, but I'm going to do it, and I don't care who I am or who me is. We've been looking at this for long enough, and 3,950 words is plenty for a random one-shot comedy, she said, as the others looked at her with surprise. Fluttershy placed her hoof over the mouse and hovered the cursor above the publish button, the others watching as she continued to speak aloud. If the world doesn't like it, then so be it. Writing shouldn't be about being perfect. It should just be about getting things out there. And so, awaiting the hopeful conclusion to their story and wishing with all their hearts that they might be freed from it, the others watched with bated breath as Fluttershy raised her hoof upward to prepare to click the button. Putting on a brave face, breathing inwards and taking a large breath, her eyes became focused and voice more serious. And if they don't like it, well, Fluttershy said as a devious smile grew across her face, I guess they'll have to take it up with me. Every pony gasped, and Fluttershy clicked the button. Then, as the person making an audiobook of this, I should probably let you guys know that the fic then has a large bit of blank space. So, I guess you're meant to be like silent. And then there's a little page break. Author's note. I don't think it worked. Great. Now they're going to judge my horribly written character. At least y'all won't be portrayed as a boring background one. Whoa, where are we? I have no idea, Pinkie Pie. I'm done with this. Any pony up for grabbing a hay burger? Wait, Rainbow Dash, I think you're displaying an action of free will. Free what now? Free will. Your brief death must have introduced a paradox in the meta-fictional space-time continuum. Quick, say something that will end the narrative. Anything. The end? Still here, darling. Try not making it a question. That leaves room for uncertainty. Oh, right. The end. Now I have to leave a fair bit of silence at the end for when I edit this in Audacity as noise removal. Okay, it's time to stop recording. This is How a Unicorn Thinks by Casket Base 77. The beads on the ceiling spinner went round and round, always moving but never getting anywhere. Izzy stared upwards from the couch, anxiously drumming her forehooves on the floor. Then she shifted position to anxiously drum her hinds instead. Some pony was breathing heavy through her nose, and because she lived alone, Izzy concluded that the nose breather was her. The job she had to do was simple. Only little ponies felt afraid to do simple stuff, and Izzy wasn't little, right? Right? Well, she hadn't measured herself in a while, nor stood next to another unicorn to compare. Not since she was still young enough to know for a fact how little she was. So much for simple stuff. A tea kettle whistled from the other room, loud enough to make her thoughts seem quiet in comparison. Izzy bolted to the kitchen and was soon examining her stash of dippy bags. There were many, too many. She was only one pony with one kettle. Chamomile flavour? No, that's for bedtime, not going out time. Lemon? No, Izzy didn't need sour on top of stress. She chose one with no label. Uncertainty can be fun sometimes, right? Right? Horn into the bag, bag into the mug. The label lacking tea sat stewing, and so did Izzy. Just popping in for a mail call. Anything cool coming down the pipe, Hardwater? Stop coming in here, Isabel. If any letter is addressed to you, it's placed in your drop box at the end of your property. Oh yeah, absolutely. But I was free today and this is the closest building to where I live, so I figured I'd check out what everyone else is up to. Maybe make chit chat with the local plugged in postmaster pony. There's a bulletin board out front with all the planned town events for the next month on it. Yeah, I saw that. It's blank and no one was nearby, so... If it's blank, then there are no planned town events for the next month. Oh. I don't see any saddlebags on you, Isabel. Can I assume that you don't have any goods you want to drop off? I don't. And you aren't here to buy another ad space in the back of the local paper? Well, I guess I'd need money to do that, right? And seeing as none of my crafts from the last ad got any buyers... Are you here for any real reason? Do I need a real reason to just make small talk? Yes, you do. Oh. Goodbye, Isabel. Right. Sorry. Goodbye, I guess. Last week's exchange at the post office hadn't gone at all like Izzy wanted. Never mind that it ended up being the longest conversation she'd had in months. The other unicorns didn't like her. Izzy was mature enough to admit that. But they didn't seem to like most things. Izzy liked most things. She liked the way the rain sounded and the sun felt. She liked the music that came out of glass bottles when she blew on them just right. She liked foraging the forest floor for the straighter sticks to make more crafts, because maybe, just maybe, she'd eventually make something that would get a reaction from another pony. Some days her searches found more than just sticks. A certain search this morning had found a lot more than just sticks, for better or worse. Horn in the mug, bag out of the mug, bag into the trash can, with a couple open and shuts on the lid. Not for any reason other than to fill the house with a few seconds of sound. Yes, Izzy did like most things. But quiet wasn't one of them. In fact, I hate quiet. Izzy buried her shameful muzzle into her mug, pretending as hard as she could that those awful nasty words didn't just come out of her. She shivered, which was odd because she didn't feel cold at all. Izzy was not a bad pony. The other unicorns didn't like her, and that didn't make her a bad pony, right? She hated a thing, but that didn't make her a bad pony, right? Right? Izzy sipped her tea, then she gulped it. Isabel Moonbow chugged and chugged her mug until there was nothing left in it. The mystery dippy bag had definitely had a taste, but Izzy didn't recognise it. If she had a friend with their own cup, maybe she could have told her what the taste was. They'd swig from their own drink, share jokes as well as tea, point to the home decor all around, and compliment all the hard work Izzy clearly put into making her house feel like a home. But Izzy's house didn't feel like a home, and she didn't have any pony to share her afternoon with. Izzy had her empty mailbox, and the quiet and too many tea bags, and the quiet and the ceiling spinner whose beads never went anywhere, and that lantern from the woods yesterday, and the note that was attached to it in the quiet. Izzy had lots of things, but she didn't have any friends. Not in Bridlewood. Though if the lantern note was telling the truth, she had friends in Maritime Bay. Izzy rinsed her mug out in the sink. Where was Maritime Bay? Absolutely no clue. Izzy dried her mug with a towel she'd crocheted herself. How many friends did she have there? No clue there either. Izzy put away her cup and stepped back, seeing how spotless the kitchen was, like no pony lived there. Izzy ate and slept, but did she really live? Izzy was tired of having to answer her own unspoken questions all the time. It twisted her tea-filled stomach into knots. The thought of going out to search for the lantern's origin all by herself. But even worse was the thought of staying here, in this cottage, all by herself, possibly forever. The slam of plywood on the drywood told Izzy she'd left her house and was trudging out of Bridlewood Forest. She blinked at the sunlight before noticing the quiet all around was being filled with the eager thumps of her own hoofsteps. Then her rhythm sped up as trees thinned. Across the open plains, Izzy was galloping for all she was worth, legs pumping like pistons as her uncombed mane trailed behind. She wasn't a bead on a ceiling spinner or an ignored ad in the newspaper. She was Izzy Moonbow, the grinning, laughing, hopeful unicorn. And she had friends waiting in Maritime Bay. The Mayonnaise Incident by Caden. Hitch was paying Izzy another visit to hang out. She had been back and forth to Maritime Bay several times, but had been busy lately. All of the warning signs outside Bridlewood needed to be unicycled into something less threatening. The entire town of Bridlewood seemed a lot more alive now. Instead of the homes being closed up, several had the windows and doors open to let the air in. He could hear music from one house, and it appeared that unicorns were big fans of disco. Hitch would have to ask if he could get a copy of whatever record that was later. Phyllis was a big fan of that old-time music. Izzy's home was on the edge of town, and it didn't take him long to reach it. He knocked on the door and heard a rattling noise inside. "Coming!" The door opened and there stood Izzy, smiling ear to ear. "Hitch, I'm so glad you stopped by for lunch." "Yeah, it was nice of you to invite me. Ever since Cantor Logic started installing some roads between the towns, It's gotten a lot faster for every pony to visit each other. Hitch walked in and saw that the tea table had been set for two, along with some sandwiches. There was also a bowl of pony hoof-shaped snacks. Izzy walked over to the table with him and they both sat down. Want some candy? They're made of roasted corn. But for some reason no pony seems to like them. Izzy took a hoof full of the candy and munched it loudly. They're barbecue flavour. Oh, thanks. Hitch tried some of them and swallowed. Yeah, I think I prefer peanuts. Izzy's horn began to glow and she opened up a jar of Hellmann's and stuck a knife in. She came out with a big glob of mayonnaise and spread it onto her sandwich. Next she replaced the piece of bread on top. Mayonnaise? Hitch asked. Yep, it's my favourite, even if it's still taboo. Don't tell any pony, okay? Hitch nodded and opened his sandwich to add some mustard and mayo. Sure, but I thought unicorns were over the whole jinx thing, now that magic is back. She nodded. Well, yeah, but they're not over the mayonnaise incident yet. Izzy scratched the back of her neck. Huh? What did mayo ever do to unicorns? Hitch asked. Well, if you really want to know... Many moons ago, about 3 blocks east of here. A young pink filly with a vibrant blue mane trotted down the road in Bridlewood with a saddlebag full of back scratches. Every pony that was outside was scratching themselves. Some had even sat down in a circle to give each other back scratches. Izzy went up to the circle. Hey Gloomy, Pencil, Vixen, Blitzen, I unicycled up some more back scratches. Want some? I've got an itch to scratch. Thanks for the new badge, Gloomy replied. She took one of the back scratches and started furiously working it down her back. The gathered ponies got up and started getting their own, and quickly Izzy had run out. You got it bad, huh? I tried to unicycle some more fine-toothed cones, but every pony's been hoarding them. Izzy shrugged, though I did find this tree that was just the right height to rub against. As they raked the claws through their fur, Alpha Bittle approached the group. Hey, I need every pony to gather at the tea shop. He snatched a back scratcher from the nearest pony and sighed in relief as he started running it under his mane. Hitch swallowed a bite of his spinach sandwich and had a sip of some fizzy water. Okay, so every pony had fleas or something? Worse, Izzy stated. There's a lot of wildlife in Bridlewood, and some pony brought back something that infected the whole town. Izzy smiled as she explored the tea shop. Alpha Bittle had a thing for games and trinkets. His dad had hoped he'd outgrow it when he got old enough to run the store on his own, but behind every counter and in every cupboard were games galore. She also found a large pile of jars full of white stuff, but before she could ask what it was, some pony cleared their throat. She looked back to see Alpha Bittle locking the door to the tea shop. Alright every pony, this lice infestation has gotten out of hand and we have only one choice left. Every single one of us is going to cover ourselves in mayonnaise to suffocate the lice. So awesome! Izzy shouted. I love mayonnaise! I thought that was an old mare's tale, Gloomy asked. Sounds like it'll fail. He shook his head. No time for spoken word poetry. Now every pony needs to partner up and get a couple of jars of mayo and we'll be out of here in no time. Oh, I picked Gloomy! Izzy ran across the room with a few jars clutched under her leg and almost tackled her. I'm gonna make her smile and forget all about those Edgar Allan Poe stories she loves. Alright, Alpha Bittle explained, pointing to various ponies. You two. Yep, everyone's paired up. Izzy had already dipped a hoof in a jar and was licking the mayonnaise off. We won't get anything done if you eat it all. Gloomy had stuck her hoof in a jar, but seemed a little less pleased about it. Alpha's got a lot of gall. Don't worry, just rub it in, like this. Izzy upturned the jar over Gloomy's mane and a large blob of mayo fell into it. She immediately started rubbing it into the mane and up and down the filly's neck. Gah! Gross! It's so cold, and it smells a week old. She humped and emptied her jar right on top of Izzy's horn. Ew! It's gonna get in my eyes! Izzy closed both of them in time as it ran down her face. Gloomy laughed as she rubbed it over her head and face. Looks like you're getting a facial. She used a hoof to scrape it away from the eyes. Izzy completed her rhyme. Oh, don't I feel special? Wait, Hitch interrupted. So it was all over a bad case of lice and a little mayonnaise. That doesn't seem so bad. We covered Sprout in peanut butter one time to get gum out of his mane, and it didn't become taboo. Oh, but we haven't gotten to the best part yet, Hitchy. Izzy jumped up onto a nearby chair and shot a hoof into the air. The action, the intrigue, the chase. He smirked. Oh, really? Let's skip to that part then. Izzy and Gloomy were covered from horn to hoof in mayonnaise. Between the thick white layer of beaten eggs and vinegar, some small tufts of hair managed to poke through. For the most part, every pony had been very thorough. Dozens and dozens of gallons of mayo, the entire stock pony of every pony's favourite condiment, was now starting to get warm and smelly in the small tea shop. Around the room, several dozen ponies were standing around impatiently. We just have to leave it in for a few hours, Alphabettle explained. I'm so bored, Izzy complained. Try to think exciting thoughts. Izzy sighed and sat down, causing a loud splashing sound from all the mayo. She looked around at every pony else and saw a green tail sticking out from underneath a boot. Huh? Izzy got up and trotted over to the table, looking under it. Pencil? Why aren't you covered in mayonnaise? I hate mayonnaise. I won't do it. Pencil climbed into the booth and held a teacup in her hoof menacingly. Every pony back! Several lice were jumping out of her mane, abandoning ship. Alphabettle headed over with the last few jars of emulsified egg. Now, Pencil, be a good filly and let us cover you up, or we'll have to do this over again. Never! There has to be another way. Wait, I got it. Pencil climbed up between the two booths and bucked the window open. Oh no! Izzy scrambled up to catch her, but slipped and fell, covering the cushion with mayonnaise. Later, suckers! Pencil leaped out the window and ran. Alphabettle sighed and headed over to the door. Okay, Izzy, come with me. You're her friend and can try to calm her down. No pony leaves or takes the mayo off until we get back. Oh, an adventure? Let's go get her. Izzy headed to the door and followed him through. Together, they went across town to the house of the rogue filly. The front door was open and they let themselves in. The two were dripping the mayonnaise everywhere and had left a trail of dirty white hoof prints. There was a buzzing noise from the bathroom. Alpha and Izzy headed over and noticed a pile of long green hairs and red fur on the floor. The buzzing stopped. Pencil? Are you in there? Alpha asked. Look, the mayo isn't so bad, I promise. He pushed the door open to find a naked pink filly sitting in a pile of hair, holding up an electric razor. Her skin was slightly wrinkled, and most ponies might have found a pony who looked like a naked mole rat a bit disturbing. But not Izzy. So awesome! Izzy shouted. I mean, you had such a pretty mane, but now you like that baby hamster I used to have. Alpha let out a long sigh and shook his head. We were trying to avoid having to shave any pony, but I guess it is very effective. Yep. Pencil pointed a hoof at the jar of mayo that Alpha had brought over in his saddlebag. Now get that the heck out of my house! Okay. Hitch had finished his sandwich and his drink. It's a silly story, but I'm not really getting it yet. Oh, that's because we haven't got to the part about the mayonnaise volcano. Izzy stuffed the last of her sandwich into her mouth. It's probably the best part. Mayo volcano. You really buried the lead on this story, Izzy. So what happened next? Hitch chuckled and put a hoof on her mouth. Finish chewing first. Izzy gulped and nodded. Oh, it was fine until the next morning, when the eggs started hatching and every pony hopped in the shower to try to get rid of the new lice. Izzy sat in her shower with a back scratcher in each hoof, running them up and down her flanks. Ah, stupid nitty things. Gloomy may have been right. There was a deep rumbling sound, and the shower head started vibrating. It sent a spray of water outside of the tub, and Izzy stood up to look around. The faucet on the sink was also making a strange groaning noise. Huh? Now that's odd. Izzy poked at the drain guard in her tub, watching the water swirl and go down it. She lowered her head and shouted into the drain, "Any pony down there?" As she listened, there was only a bubbling shriek in return. A rivet snapped and a shower head fell into the tub as the water sputtered and stopped. Izzy looked up into the exposed pipe. There wasn't any water coming out. Some frothy white foam was dripping from it. And then a large wad of yesterday's mayonnaise shot out of the pipe and onto Izzy. She gasped and fell backwards in the tub. The rumbling continued until the shower drain popped up, carrying hair and mayonnaise up into the tub until it was several inches deep. Oh no! I have to warn every pony! Izzy crawled out of the tub and grabbed the nearest towel to try to clean herself up. By the time she had gotten most of the sticky brown tinged mayonnaise off, the tub and sink were both full of smelly egg condiment. She wrapped a clean towel up around her mane to help it dry. This is bad, so bad! Izzy ran out of her bathroom and to the front door. She opened it and stepped into a scene straight out of one of those old propaganda films about the Earth ponies and Pegasi. The smell of rotten fish and egg hung in the air. Every pony was screaming and fleeing from their homes. A large white tide was spilling out of the nearest home as the sewer system of Bridlewood backed up and attacked with a vengeance. Somehow it was like the mayonnaise had multiplied deep underground and carried back up with it the dredged up contents of days worth of stuff better left undescribed. Izzy ran down the road, doing her best to avoid the muddy condiment puddles on her way to the tea shop. Alpha always seemed to know what to do. By the time she got there, she found him standing on a table in the middle of the road, amidst a sea of mayo. Hey, Alpha Bittle, what can I do to help every pony? Izzy asked. We need to make sure every pony is safe, he replied. Help! Some ponies screamed. Oh, I'm on it. Come on. Izzy ran towards the shout, and Alpha leapt off his table, clearing most of the vicious sea of white creamy doom. He slipped and got a bit of it on his legs before scrambling after the filly to help. The two of them went down the road, listening to the screams, until they were near the town's water plumbing, sanitation and sewerage plant. There was several warning alarms being sounded as they tried to pump and purify a town's worth of pony-flavoured mayonnaise through the system. They looked up into the window of the house next to the plant. Hanging halfway out of the top floor window was a hairless pink pony. Pencil? Izzy asked. It's all over the lower floor, and it's flooding up into my bedroom. Help! Pencil screamed in a blind, irrational state. Stay calm, Alpha Biddle said. Izzy, we'll need your towel. Izzy nodded and took it off. Are we going to make a kite? Oh, or maybe a hang glider? Yeah, I think that'd work. No, we need to catch her. Hold that end and stand there. Alpha took one end and gave the other to Izzy. Oh, like fire ponies. Got it. Izzy held the towel tightly and looked up to the distraught pony. They adjusted their position a little bit to try to find the right spot to catch her. I can't, Pencil shouted down. Yes, you can, Izzy smiled. You're the best at jump rope, remember? The Izzy nodded, taking a few deep breaths. The house shook and the ground started to vibrate slightly. She looked back inside her room. and noticed the mayonnaise had almost reached her hoof. Both eyes shot wide as the cursed substance touched her. "Ellen, see!" Pencil shouted, leaping out of the window without looking. Izzy and Alphabettle caught her, but her momentum bounced her off and carried her nearby to the fence of the water treatment plant. She landed on her hooves and skidded to a stop right before a puddle of mayonnaise. Whew! Pencil wiped a hoof across her brow. "I almost shaved all my hair and fur off for nothing." Izzy and Alphabettle walked up beside her, and Izzy gave her a hug. "You know, you and Gloomy were right. The lice came back." "Yeah, I guess the mail was a bad idea after all," Alf agreed. There was a sudden siren like the old air raid alerts for Pegasi invasions that sounded from the water treatment facility. Several rivets started shooting through the air with sharp whirring sounds. Steam rose from one of the larger boilers, and several large sheet metal tanks began to moan like the ghosts of ponies tortured in Tartarus. "Oh, what do you think that means?" Izzy asked. Alpha gulped and felt a pit sinking in his stomach. Phillies, I think we'd better run." Pencil and Izzy nodded. As they turned to leave, the ground itself began to split open in wide cracks, thick mayonnaise rising up between them. Before they could process this, there was a loud explosion and a wave of air knocked them all to the ground. The world went grey, and Izzy heard a ringing in her ears. She reached over to Pencil, who appeared to be talking, but Izzy couldn't hear what she was saying. Alpha stepped forward to shield them, and Izzy watched in slow motion as a huge wave of Hellmann's mayonnaise swept over them. There was screaming as they were carried off into the town centre before the erupting mayonnaise from the processing plant finally relented, depositing 3 unicorns coated entirely in mayo near the entrance to the tea shop. Pencil stopped gagging just long enough to say, "I hate fucking mayonnaise!" By this point in the story, Izzy had arranged several plates, cups and utensils to help show Hitch what the town had looked like. Her tea table was now covered in mayo, including some small pony figures that she'd carved. "Wow, that does sound a little traumatic," Hitch replied. "I can see why no pony wants to think about or eat mayonnaise anymore." "Yeah, they're a little silly if you ask me, but what can you do?" Izzy shrugged. Hitch raised an eyebrow. "So, how did you get rid of the lice?" "Oh, we had to shave every single pony bald. And after all that hard work with the mayo, plus it took weeks to clean up the mess." He chuckled. "An entire town full of bald unicorns. That must have been a sight to behold." "Yeah, you ever try to tell 2 ponies apart when they're both pink and wrinkly?" "Can't say that I have," Hitch replied. "So, why don't you hate mayonnaise too?" "Are you kidding? That was the most fun I've ever had, almost getting drowned by a mayonnaise volcano." She laughed and began stacking up her dishes to take them to the kitchen. "Wow, Izzy, I wish I could see the joy and wonder in things like you do." 1,000 years later. Written and composed by Dio Brando. Dear friends of mine, I'm writing this to you not because I think you will receive it. Somewhere in my heart I want to believe that you will. I know, however, that what's done is done. In this long time that I have taught so many the value of friendship, there is still one lesson I have yet to learn for myself, and that is how to deal with its loss. Yet I shan't focus on that which is inevitable. I shan't focus on that which cannot be changed. It is a process of life, ironically. A cycle must come to an end to start anew. However, my beloved friends, I never thought, not then and not now, that I would truly have to endure for so many years the pain of losing all of you. In order to settle this in my broken heart once more, I shall write to you, to all of you. This letter, which you shall perhaps never read, is all of my love towards you, to bring together the memories we shared, our best moments, and to bring forth the good in all that you ever were and are to me today. Rainbow Dash, you were as loyal a friend as any, and even more. I remember hearing the crackling across the sky, seeing that burst of colour rushing over the horizon from when you performed what ponies thought to be impossible. Your daring attitude and your competitive nature would have seemed by some to be bothersome, but I saw the spirit of a friend who would do anything to keep her loved ones up the top. Someone who wouldn't turn down a challenge, no matter how difficult, because their friends relied on them to complete it. I saw in you not arrogance, but a true heart. Pride, not in yourself, but in the ponies you surrounded yourself with. It was that pride that made you so important to us all, that showed us it was okay to brag on those you loved. You taught us loyalty to one another, and you brought to us those traits that no one else could have perfectly exemplified but you. I wish not to have known you for a single day less, yet even now I would give everything for even a day more with any of you. Rainbow Dash, you taught me loyalty, and I will never forget the promise I made to you on that day, to never let my friends down, even though things might be tough. Rarity, you were the most generous of us all. I will never forget the many times you sacrificed your look, your time, your money and your efforts to help me and all of us out of any scenario we faced. You never batted an eye to it. Not once did you ever think twice to give to those you held so dearly. You showed us what generosity was. And of all the things you gave, your heart was the most valuable. Every time you helped another out with what you had, you showed us how to use what we have earned, not just for ourselves, but for others. To give to those less fortunate than us, that they might give to others as well. You could have pursued a path that would have given you everything, that would have kept everything to you, but you sacrificed everything for what you and all of us believed was more important, your friends. You realized that, truly, the love of your friends was everything, and that, perhaps, it wasn't even a sacrifice to you. You put your friends above yourself, and you gave to them what you would have wanted. Thus we gave back, and so did every pony you had ever helped. The tears from your eyes as you laid on that bed, seeing all the ponies that you selflessly gave to coming to you to give back, was perhaps the most heartbreaking moment of your passing. It was sad to see a pony like you leave, but your impact has outlasted this long time. Your legacy has continued, as all of our friends have. Rarity, you taught me generosity, and I will never forget the promise I made to you on that day, to give generously to those in need, even if I feel like I need it more. Applejack, you were the most honest of us all. I will never forget the times you told me the truth, regardless of whether it made me feel bad or not. But I could see, feel, and understand your loving tone, that you wanted better for me, even if it meant pointing out my flaws. You were honest with all of us, never letting the worst of us go free. You always stopped it in its tracks. You were never condescending. You never saw us lower than yourself. Honesty was your gift, not just because you could tell a brutal truth, but because you could do so in such a way that we knew you wanted and expected the best out of us, and thus we did the same for you. You always worked hard and never cheated out of any situations when helping others out. Your honesty was more than words, it was your heart, and I never doubted you. Because of you, I have taught ponies for so many years the way to speak honest words, while still loving, to deal with those difficult scenarios, while also lifting ponies up. Applejack, you taught me honesty, and I will never forget the promise I made to you on that day, to speak truth and to speak love, so that every pony could reach their highest potential. Fluttershy, you were the kindest of us all. I will never forget how you put every pony before yourself, how your soft voice comforted so many souls who were in such need of it. For me, you were my hope of dealing with daily stresses. When I was down, you lifted me up. You did that for all of us and everyone you meet. You left no pony out, making sure that every pony within your reach had even a touch of kindness to keep going that day. You always knew when someone was feeling left out, when they were sad or angry or stressed. You always knew how to fix it. You were not blindly nice, but you had the empathy for every pony that seemed so hard to have in a time like this. Yet, no matter how terrible you felt, you always found it in your heart to derive your joy from giving it to another. Your warmth spread like fire, showing all ponies how to be kind in a way that did more than bring a fake smile. Fluttershy, you taught me kindness, and I will never forget the promise I made to you on that day, to be the warmth that ponies seek, to be the love that ponies need, because they all deserve it. Pinkamena Diane Pie, you spread the most laughter of us all. I will never forget the times you brought smiles to our faces, regardless of how terrible we felt. You gave us, and especially myself, the strength to carry on in the most difficult circumstances. You always saw the bright side, and you never even let yourself stay sad, because you knew your friends counted on you to bring them the light of a bright smile. Because of you, we all knew how to bring joy in the darkest of times, when days were as black as night, when they were as cold as a harsh winter wind. Your smile was sometimes all that I knew I could look forward to. Even now, I would beg the goddesses to see your smile again. Even once, if only I could. Your joy outlasted your life, with all ponies who look up to you as an example to bring laughter to the darkness, to see the good in everything. Pinkamena Diane Pie, you taught me laughter, and I will never forget the promise I made you on that day, to find joy in everything, to bring laughter in any scenario, because it truly was the best medicine. I reflect on so many memories of all of you, more than I can write, but the most burdensome memories to my thoughts are those promises I made to you. That which you have taught me, have I truly retained? Rainbow Dash, I promised I would be loyal, but I have none to be loyal to. Rarity, I promised to be generous, but I have not found it in my heart that I could give anything, as I have so little to give. Applejack, I promised to be honest, but can I truly be honest if all I have to say is grim? Fluttershy, I promised to be kind, but I cannot find it in my heart to even lift my head to those I serve as princess. Pinkie Pie, I promised to have joy, but yet I have nothing but sadness. Do I even have the friends I used to? Since losing all of you, have I ever made more? Would that be replacing you? Would it be wrong? Or is it more that I have made these promises to my friends who are dead and have broken them? Have I truly let all 5 of you, my dearest friends, whom I mourn for day after day, down after all this time? I have written this letter 365,000 times. Every night, I cannot bear but to write this letter. Yet, what does it do but reflect my mourning? I do not know if I can take it. I miss all of you so much. Why can't you come back? Why can't... Twilight threw the paper towards the wall, burying her face in the pillow beside her throne, sobbing. It had been 1,000 years, and she had not felt any different, nor had she once kept the promises she made. She did not know how much longer she could take it, or if she should just put an end to... Her sobbing stopped. She looked up at the door. Why were her guards waking her up this early? She used her magic to open the door, seeing a small filly from one of her friendship classes holding a letter. Twilight could see that she was shivering. "Dear child, please come in," Twilight said quietly. "Why are you up so late? How did you get past the... Oh, never mind that. What has brought you here?" The child walked towards Twilight's bed quietly, looking to the floor nervously before placing the small paper onto it. It was a poorly folded envelope with some crayon writing on it.
Miss Twilight, you taught us today about helping our friends out when they were sad,
She said quietly.
and you look sad, so I wanted to help you.
Twilight blinked, looking down at the card and reading it. Dear Princess Twilight, we want you to know that we all love you very, very much, and we are all your friends. Love. Beneath the closing of the small letter was written the name of every classmate of that class, all children who perhaps didn't have a clue what the stress of death was like. A drop of water stained the paper, as it had brought Twilight to tears once more, but this time she was smiling. She gave the filly a warm, tight hug, closing her eyes tightly as she swore. For just a moment she could feel her friends smiling at her from above. Dear, dear friends of mine, I see now that it is not wrong to let go of death, because in the process of holding onto your deaths, I have let go of your lives. This filly, who perhaps does not know of these complications, has come to me to teach me the most valuable lesson of all. Friendship does not end with death. Friendship continues on for the living. Not one more day will I break these promises I have made to you. I swear. Thank you for everything, my beloved friends. Love, Twilight Sparkle. Our Voices Matter Too by Princess Cadence. There was that smile again. She hated that smile. It was a smile that said, I know I screwed up. Can you ever forgive me? But it also said, you know you can't get angry with me. Oh, she didn't need to get angry though. No, sir. Instead, she had a much better card up her sleeve, a counter-expression that contained a heaping helping of disappointment with a pinch of sadness mixed in to make the perfect concoction of, don't give me that look, stew. So, you haven't been practicing your arpeggios, have you? Luster Dawn waved her hoof while blowing a raspberry.
Haven't been practicing my arpeggios? Of course I've been practicing my arpeggios. I just, had a cough during that major fifth in the middle.
The white mare raised an eyebrow while Luster doubled down on her embarrassed smile. A cough? You haven't coughed once since you got in here.
I, breathed in from the wrong tube.
Sweetie Belle put her hoof to her face with a sigh, closing her eyes so she wouldn't have to see her student's expression anymore. Okay then, if it was just a cough, then let's try it again from the top.
Oh,
Luster Dawn flinched, making Sweetie Belle's eyebrow rise even higher.
I was just thinking maybe we could move on to some scales and try arpeggios again on Thursday.
We've done scales 5 times today.
I promise I'm really good at them.
The white unicorn gave the pink pony a dull stare and hit the B-flat key on her piano, seeing her gulp as the tone rang throughout the practice room. Arpeggios, now!
Okay, here I go.
Luster Dawn took in a deep breath. La 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 la! Sweetie Belle winced as Luster Dawn somehow managed to turn a perfect octave into a minor fourth, which she didn't even realise existed at that point. Before the sound could rupture her eardrums, however, Luster Dawn put her hoof over her mouth and started coughing loudly.
See? It was a cough.
Ah, what are we going to do with you? Sweetie Belle pulled her full board over the piano keys and sat down on the bench with a sigh. Finally, Luster Dawn stopped smiling, her eyebrows now pinching together uneasily. You're not going to kick me out of lessons, are you, sweetie? Don't be silly. Of course I'm not going to kick you out of lessons. Luster Dawn wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead with a breath of relief. But Luster's eyes shot back up.
But
But I'm a little confused why you're even taking voice lessons in the first place. I know how hard you can work when you put your mind to something, so why does it seem like your voice lessons are the only thing you're shirking off? If you don't like singing, then you don't have to do it.
No, I do.
The pink filly rubbed her foreleg.
I have to be well-rounded if I want to make it into Twilight's School of Magic.
If you want, I can just put in a good word for you. I know Princess Twilight pretty well after all. Luster's eyes went wide, her face pale.
No, I can't ask you to do that.
Sure you can. In fact, I think I have a notepad somewhere around.
Stop!
Just as Sweetie Belle bent over to search through her things, though Luster Dawn pulled her in a golden force field, physically preventing the other unicorn from moving, Sweetie could still see over in the filly's direction. But what she saw was complete panic.
Sorry,
Luster continued.
I didn't mean to,
The force field around Sweetie disappeared, but even though she could move freely now, Sweetie Belle didn't move a muscle. Honestly, she couldn't even consider moving with all the questions swirling around in her brain at the moment. No, I don't know. What's gotten into you, Luster?
It's nothing.
The smaller unicorn ran a hoof through her messy mane. I just want to get into Twilight School based on merit, not because I know one of her friends. There was that smile again, and if she hadn't seen it a million times already, she might have actually believed her. Luster Dawn probably wasn't lying when she said she wanted to get in based on merit alone, but that didn't necessarily mean she was telling the truth either. She was hiding something, and Sweetie was going to find out what it was, to get Luster's attention back onto singing if nothing else. Once the mare regained her composure, she sat up straight, scooched over to the edge of her seat, and patted the cushion of the piano bench beside her. Luster Dawn tilted her head, switching glances between her teacher and the space at her side. Come on, Sweetie said, gently yet sternly. You've still got lots of time left in your lesson, and it sounds like you can't keep singing with that cough of yours. Luster Dawn shrunk into her shoulders with a blush, before quickly taking her seat beside the white mare.
Sorry again, Sweetie. I don't mean to be a problem.
Problem? Is that what you think you are? Well, yeah.
Theoretically speaking, my psychological theory textbook says that when your lips have a perfect horizontal curve with your eyelids halfway closed, that signifies that either you're tired or you have a problem. And judging based on the volume and intonation of your voice, you've had at least 6 hours of sleep, so...
Good grief, she really would fit in a Twilight School. Luster, how old are you?
Almost 11? How come?
Sweetie leaned in closer, hoping that Luster wasn't secretly using something as simple as the angle of her back to make any more inferences about her mood. Because that's the cutoff age for your chance to apply to school, isn't it? If you really want to show off your singing talents, then you need to practice outside of lessons too. Luster Dawn's gaze dropped to her knees.
I know. Sometimes I get so caught up in my textbooks that I lose track of time. I really do want to practice, but I guess I just want to study more. Magic, science, philosophy, all of it is so interesting. And it's not like singing isn't interesting to me too. It's just not my passion.
Finally, the smile was gone, and for the first time all day, Sweetie Belle could actually see the real Luster Dawn, the one she'd been hiding while trying not to disappoint her. You know, singing isn't my passion either. Luster Dawn had to do a double take.
Hang on, singing isn't your passion? Then how come you teach voice lessons?
Because I think I'm good at it. When my students actually practice. Sweetie Belle didn't raise her voice or tone, but clearly communicated her urgency to where Luster Dawn couldn't help but nod her head with a wince. You can't really tell since my cutie mark has a musical note in it, but my real passion is helping other ponies find out what their passion is.
Oh! And this way you can do something you're good at while doing something you're passionate about. Got it. Too bad I've already found my special talent, right?
Luster Dawn motioned towards her own flank, which proudly portrayed the image of the sun rising over the ocean. Sweetie Belle had been giving her lessons for a few months now, and she already had her cutie mark when they very first met, which brought up one question that she'd been wondering for a while. When did you get your cutie mark, Luster? The filly smiled again, this time in a way that wasn't smarmy or fake.
Oh, this? I must have gotten it ages ago. Not to brag, but I basically learned that I love learning before I even learned how to learn.
Sweetie squinted her eyes. Wait, you learned how to what? The reaction made Luster Dawn giggle, but Sweetie Belle couldn't stop scratching her head.
What I'm saying is, I've always known what I loved.
Oh, that makes more sense. Maybe lead with that next time. The filly giggled again.
Got it.
Actually, I didn't get my cutie mark until I was about your age. Luster tilted an eyebrow.
Wait, really? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just seems kind of old to figure out what you really love.
Meh, I was a late bloomer. Actually, 2 of my friends got their cutie marks at the same time I did. We must have tried everything before we finally figured it out.
That's kind of funny, actually.
The pink unicorn laughed into a whoos.
I mean, no offense, of course. I guess I can't really relate since I've just always known what makes me happy. I guess maybe my biggest problem is figuring out what I love more sometimes.
Sweetie Belle cocked her head to the side. But you just said you already know what you love most.
I know, it's just... forget it. Let's go back to our Peggios.
Luster Dawn quickly, yet not hurriedly, pushed herself off of the bench. But Sweetie Belle just as quickly grabbed the filly's hoof and gently led her back to her seat. Oh no, you don't. There's still more you aren't telling me.
I know, but logically speaking, wouldn't it make sense to move on to more productive tasks?
There she went again. She thought she could use logic to get out of something she was obviously trying to avoid. She was a smart girl, and she did have a point. But she wasn't dealing with just any voice teacher, even if Sweetie didn't exactly have any business prying into her personal life. She still had the obligation to ask. Normally, yes, the teacher began, but singing is different from math or science. You can hit all the right notes in a song and still not be singing what's written on the page. The filly scratched her head. That makes no sense. Music isn't about making sense. It's about emotion. It's about bringing the notes to life. Even if your voice oscillates at a specific frequency or whatever, if your heart isn't what you're using to connect the notes together, then you'll never be able to bring to life what the composer had in mind when she wrote the notes down in the first place.
So...
The whole concept must have been so vague to Luster Dawn. She'd always been so quick to quantify things that when it was time to forget about the specifics and feel things out, she was in a completely different sphere, way out of her comfort zone. Now Sweetie was beginning to see why Twilight wanted her students to be well-rounded and quietly thanked her for it.
if I understand what you're telling me,
Luster began.
then I have to tell you what I'm feeling before I'll be able to sing well?
Sweetie Belle shook her head. You don't have to tell me anything. You just need to confront what's bugging you instead of trying to push it to the back of your mind. Trust me, these things always have a way of popping up when you want them to the least. Luster Dawn rolled her eyes and mumbled under her breath.
Great, that still means I have to talk to you about it.
What? As the filly's eyes slowly moved up from the ground to meet her teacher's eyes, Sweetie felt a pinch in her own heart. Her eyes were practically shining from the water in the back of her eyelids. Not crying, but still trembling. The smile from earlier hadn't just disappeared. It had turned into a frown so powerful that Sweetie had to stop herself from hugging the bejesus out of her right then and there. This wasn't like Luster at all. Sweetie could tell that whatever was bugging Luster Dawn, it must have been absolutely killing her on the inside. Luster?
Sweetie, I want to tell you, but I'm so scared.
What's going on? Was she being bullied, harassed? Was some pony going to hurt her? What else could have possibly been so scary that she couldn't even talk about it? Without thinking, Sweetie put her hooves on Luster Dawn's shoulders and looked into the filly's eyes with a look that could kill. Luster, I need you to be honest with me. Are you in danger? Do I need to get any pony else involved? Luster Dawn shook off the mare's hooves with a face of disgust.
What? No. Just, can't we forget about it, please?
Even if Sweetie Belle was still confused, she couldn't help but sigh in relief, knowing that at least Luster was safe. Still though, if that wasn't it, then what was bothering her? Sorry, the mare said. I just needed to know you were okay.
Okay? I'm not okay. Why did this have to happen to me? I thought I knew what I wanted. I've always known what I wanted, but now... I hate this.
Sweetie Belle couldn't help but lift an eyebrow. Hate what? As the filly stomped off of the bench into a spiral of frustration, she lifted her head back with a gulp. And even then she probably didn't mean to. A single tear fell down the girl's cheek.
I feel so stupid. The decision is so obvious. I should just practice my stupid arpeggios so that I can get into the School of Magic. Why is that so hard?
Because you found other things you love, Sweetie replied with a supportive smile. I know it's hard to concentrate sometimes, when the thing you care about most starts to distract you, but you don't have to beat yourself up over it. I can help you get through it. Sweetie was sure that she'd said all the right things, but for some reason Luster Dawn just shook her head, scowling even harder as she attempted to keep herself from letting the floodgates open up.
Sweetie, you're the problem.
What? Sweetie Belle's head reeled back in shock. What had she done wrong? Was she being too overprotective? Had she said something that hurt Luster's feelings? She thought she was doing a good job, so how was it that she had practically brought her favourite student to tears without even realising it?
I told you that I wanted to practice my arpeggios.
That's fine, the mare replied, holding her hooves up in a panic. We can work on your arpeggios if that's what you want. We don't need to talk about it.
But I want to talk about it. I'm just scared to talk about it. With you.
The air in Sweetie's lungs froze. With me? Finally, visibly stealing her nerves down, Luster Dawn held her head high and looked Sweetie Belle in the eyes, making the older mare reflexively flinch.
It's not that I found something I love. It's just that I found some pony that I love.
Suddenly, Sweetie Belle could feel her face turning a bright shade of crimson. In all the years she'd taught voice lessons, none of her students had ever confided in her about their crush issues before, and this one seemed to be no short of this filly's first real love. Sweetie silently cursed herself for not taking those junior seminars seriously. Oh, the mare replied, trying to hide her embarrassment. That's great. Tell me about him.
Her.
Okay. Obviously, I'm kind of bad at this, but let's keep going. What else can you tell me about her?
Well, she's really pretty.
Oh,
She's got a great singing voice.
perfect. All the more reason to practice your arpeggios.
And her name is Sweetie Belle.
Not what I was expecting. Sweetie Belle had no idea how she was supposed to respond, but the one thing she did know was that she'd done it wrong, as was made evident by Luster's immediate reaction.
See, I feel so stupid.
The filly ruffled her hooves through her already messy mane, giving herself close to an afro by the time she was done. Sweetie Belle wanted to say something, but how could she? What was she even supposed to say? Hey, it's okay, the mare said with a smile she hoped didn't look too forced. You don't need to feel bad about that.
Are you kidding? I just humiliated myself. Gah! Where's that memory wiping spell when you need it?
Actually, why don't we talk about it some more without erasing my memories? Luster Dawn peeked an eye out of her hooves to see Sweetie's reassuring smile, and with another aggravated groan, she took her seat next to her teacher again. Sweetie Belle couldn't help but mentally celebrate her victory of not having her thoughts recomposed against her will.
So,
The filly began, still too timid to make eye contact with the older pony. Right, we were going to talk about,
me being in love with you?
I really should have let you practice those scales.
I know, it's stupid. A filly shouldn't fall in love with a grown mare. I just couldn't help it. You're always so supportive and nice and beautiful.
Sweetie Belle had to look away to keep her cheeks from burning up to the temperature of Celestia's noonday sun. After she'd moved her thoughts away from the barrage of compliments though, she realised a more important question that she'd initially overlooked. I don't understand, Sweetie said. I mean, even if you have a crush on me, why is that stopping you from practicing outside of lessons?
Because
Luster's eyes dropped to the floor again.
if I get really good at singing, I'll get accepted into Twilight's School of Magic.
And suddenly everything made sense. And if you get accepted into the School of Magic, you'll have no reason to see me anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
Calling this a unique situation would have been an understatement. Sweetie didn't even know what to do with her hooves anymore, let alone how she was supposed to continue this conversation. It was becoming more and more obvious that their practicing was basically done for the day. So should she just send Luster Dawn home? No, that would give her the wrong impression. She didn't want Luster to think she was angry at her for anything.
Sweetie, can I ask you a question?
The white mare shook her head to pull her attention back to her student. Yeah, go ahead and ask me anything. Her voice trailed off.
Is it okay that I like you? I mean, I know it's not okay, but
Luster, of course it's okay. The filly's face looked up in surprise. I guess I'm just a little frazzled is all.
But we're both girls, and there's such a big age difference between us.
Just as Luster Dawn's face drifted back to the floor, however, Sweetie put a hoof around her shoulder, making the filly look up in shock to see her teacher's beaming smile. That's okay, Luster. You're allowed to love whoever you want, no matter who they are. Finally, a smile showed up on Luster Dawn's face again. Not one that tried to hide her shame, but a genuine, honest-to-goodness smile that put Sweetie Belle's heart at ease.
Thanks, sweetie. I love you. Sorry. I should keep that to myself for now.
Sweetie Belle laughed and shook her head. It's fine. You don't need to worry about it. Think we should do some more practicing? We still have some time left in the lesson after all. Luster Dawn rubbed her foreleg.
Actually, I was hoping we could talk some more.
Just as Sweetie was beginning to open up her fall board again, she quickly closed it back up, swiveling in her seat to face her student. Sure, what else you want to talk about?
Well, I still don't know what I should do. I really want to get into Princess Twilight's school, but I also really want to stay here with you. I know you're going to say I should still try to get in, but
I think you should try to get in. Luster Dawn rolled her eyes.
Gee, thanks for analysing both perspectives.
The mare chuckled. I did, Lester. You love magic and science and all that technical mumbo-jumbo. I can't let you give up the opportunity of a lifetime, all because of me.
I guess that answers my second question then.
The filly's smile disappeared again, and yet again, Sweetie didn't know what she did wrong. Second question?
I was just wondering how you felt about me, but I guess that answers that question.
Sweetie Belle flinched internally. Yet another question she really didn't know how to answer. What even were her options at this point? No matter what she said, her emphasis needed to be on encouraging Luster Dawn to get into the School of Magic. But if she said the wrong thing, Luster would think that Sweetie didn't care about her, which was the complete opposite of how she felt. Now that she thought about it, how did Sweetie Belle feel about Luster Dawn? Of course, this was her favourite student, and she always loved getting the chance to see her. In fact, it was kind of the highlight of her day. But that was just because Lustre Dawn was always so supportive and nice and beautiful. Oh, sweet Celestia! Lustre Dawn cocked her head in confusion. Pardon? It's nothing. Sweetie Belle looked away while shaking her hooves and silently hoping that the burning sensation in her cheeks wasn't visible. Crap, right after telling Lustre Dawn that it was okay to fall in love with whoever made her happy, Sweetie found herself with her own internal struggle that completely contradicted that theory. Maybe it was okay for Lustre Dawn to like whoever she wanted, but not Sweetie Belle. That made sense, right?
It sure doesn't look like nothing, sweetie. Are you feeling alright? Your face looks like a tomato right now.
Oh great, a tomato. A gosh dang tomato. Have you always called me by my first name? Normally my students call me Miss Bell. Lustre Dawn shrugged her shoulders.
You were the one who told me to start calling you that.
I did? Great, what other mistakes had Sweetie Belle made? Hang on, she still didn't know if this was necessarily a mistake. Wait, of course this was a mistake. She must have something wrong with her. No respecting full-grown adult would fall in love with a girl who hadn't even reached her 11th birthday yet, right? She had to shake this feeling fast. While Sweetie went to war with her own mind, however, Lustre Dawn began to cringe.
Are you sure you're okay? There's steam coming out of your cheeks right now. Maybe I should go get some.
No! Just as Lustre Dawn hopped off of the piano bench, Sweetie Belle grabbed her hoof, looking down at her knees, still too nervous to look the filly in the eye.
Sweetie?
No, don't go. Stay here. Stay. With me. For as long as you can. The filly giggled, making Sweetie Belle look up in curiosity.
I'm only going to get some water. I'm not leaving you.
Sweetie Belle breathed a sigh of relief and embarrassment, trying her best to let her heartbeat slow back down to a normal rhythm, although at this point, the secret that she didn't even know she was keeping had probably slipped out unintentionally. The older unicorn looked back at her student to see her reaction, expecting the filly to be confused and concerned, but instead, she saw that Lustre Dawn was trying to keep herself from breaking out into a giggle fit.
Is there something else you wanted to say, Miss Bell?
Well, there was no point trying to hide it now. Clearing her throat and lifting her shoulders back up, Sweetie Belle looked down into her student's snarky smirk and calmly said, "Yes, I was having a heat stroke, but I'm all better now."
Oh, really? Because one of the symptoms of heat stroke is a lack of perspiration.
Sweetie blinked, continuing to maintain a stoic face despite her student's grin growing wider. "I'm covered in sweat right now, aren't I?"
Drenched.
"What's the one right below heat stroke?"
Heat exhaustion?
"Yeah, I was suffering from that." Lustre Dawn's entire body bounced forward as she again tried holding back her laughter, and after a moment to recompose herself, she said, "Oh really? Are you experiencing any dizziness? Rapid pulse? Muscle cramps? Nausea?" "Actually, all of the above. Shoot, am I really suffering from heat exhaustion?" At this point, Lustre Dawn could no longer hold in her laughter, and suddenly she was rolling on the floor, kicking her legs wildly as her boisterous guffaws filled the practice room. Sweetie, meanwhile, fell forward with her face in her hooves, trying somehow to hide herself from the embarrassment she was feeling. "I'm gonna guess she knew the whole time it wasn't heat exhaustion." Lustre Dawn allowed one more chuckle before rising back up to her hooves.
Well, you do have all the symptoms, so it's hard to say for sure. Let me just check one thing really quick.
Sweetie Belle pulled her face away from her hooves, and as she did so, she found her cheeks heating up again. Suddenly, Lustre Dawn's forehead was pressed against hers, giving the mare the most personal view of the filly's smile that she'd ever seen. Her heartbeat was accelerating, her breathing caught in a mix between stagnant and uncontrollable. Had Lustre Dawn's eyes always been so pretty? Had her smile always made her heart jump like that? Finally, the filly pulled away and said,
No, I think it's heat exhaustion.
Sweetie Belle gulped. Are you sure?
Want me to check again?
The older unicorn froze, but after a few brief moments of silence, she slowly nodded her head, allowing the filly to close the distance between them again, placing their foreheads together and getting another close-up of Lustre Dawn's face. The feeling of her mane brushing against Sweetie Belle's cheeks made her back shiver. The way she giggled pulled the breath out of her lungs. If they stayed like this much longer, Sweetie Belle might legitimately pass out, which would definitely be bad news for her 3:30 appointment. The big question though was what now that the problem that Lustre Dawn was facing earlier was finally beginning to sink in, and Sweetie Belle finally began to understand exactly what Lustre Dawn was going through. Sweetie only realised the expression she was making when she saw the smile disappear from Lustre Dawn's face, replaced instead with a look of concern that tore Sweetie Belle's heart apart.
Hey, are you okay?
The filly asked.
You're not really feeling sick, are you?
Lustre Dawn pulled away, giving Sweetie the chance to rest her head onto her hoof. No, I mean, I am feeling sick, but it's not anything worth worrying about.
Sweetie, even if you say that, I'm still going to worry.
Of course she would. She was just perfect like that. And it was for exactly that reason that she had to let her go. I think you should apply to the School of Magic. Lustre Dawn's mouth scrunched to the side.
Huh? Where's this coming from all of a sudden?
Lustre, Sweetie Belle sighed. I know how you feel about me. Trust me, I really do know. But you can't let me stop you from doing what you were born to do. You're so good at everything, and that includes singing too. All of Equestria would be missing out if you didn't become the best version of yourself possible.
But what about you? It's not like I don't love you as much as magic or science or philosophy. It's not like you don't make me a better pony.
Exactly. Could you really say I'd make you a better pony if I didn't tell you to enroll in the School of Magic? Lustre Dawn winced, and even though Sweetie Belle could feel the same pain in her own heart, this just reaffirmed that she was making the right choice. You can accomplish so much, Lustre, but I can only help you in two ways. One is singing.
And the other is leading me towards my true passions?
Lustre Dawn looked up from the ground and into Sweetie Belle's eyes, and even though she could tell Lustre was putting on a brave face, Sweetie was the one really trying not to let her emotions show. Lustre, you know I care about you.
Then can you tell me just once?
Sweetie Belle opened her mouth, but before she could speak, the filly placed her hoof onto the mare's lips.
I promise I'll go to Twilight School if you tell me, but I need you to be honest here. You said we're free to love whoever we want. If that's true, I need to know for sure right now.
Sweetie Belle couldn't wait another moment. Without thinking, the mare engulfed the young pony into a giant hug, and even though Sweetie Belle's eyes were closed, she could feel how wide Lustre had grown. She could feel the filly's heartbeat accelerating, pounding against her own chest, but after the initial shock wore off, Lustre's pulse returned to normal as her hooves squeezed against Sweetie Belle's back. I love you, Lustre Dawn. The filly squeezed tighter.
I love you too, Sweetie Belle.
And then the hug broke. Both unicorns looked into each other's eyes, but neither one cried, despite the overwhelming emotions swelling up within their chests. Then, with either the best or worst timing in the world, a timer went off on the piano, signalling that the lesson was officially over. Again, the two of them looked into each other's eyes, neither one really wanting to leave the other. But they both knew Sweetie had other students who would be there any minute. Their time was up, at least for now.
So,
Lustre began, twirling her mane. My audition is in 3 weeks. Then I'll know if I've been accepted into the School of Magic. Good. Let's practice as hard as we can to make sure you get in.
right. So, I'll see you Thursday?
Sweetie Belle smiled. Send me a letter.
You mean when I go to the School of Magic?
Nope, before your next lesson. Lusterdorn tried to raise an eyebrow, but her beaming grin completely ruined the cool image she was going for.
You know it's Tuesday, right?
I know. I feel like I'm going to miss you in the meantime. The filly giggled, and with her smile growing even wider, she nodded her head.
Okay, hopefully you'll be able to keep up, because I have a feeling I'll be writing more than one.
I'm going to need the practice for when you get accepted. Then we'll really see who gets sick of who first. Sweetie Belle threw in a wink, and at that moment they both heard a knock at the door, pulling their head out of the clouds and grounding them back to reality.
Thanks, sweetie. I'll see you next time.
The minute Lusterdorn opened the door though, she was met with another filly pushing her way through the entrance with two very tired looking parrots standing behind her.
Hey, hey! Watch out, Equestria, because Flurry Heart's about to show you all how good this princess can sing. La 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 la! That's my range.
Luster and Sweetie turned toward each other with the exact same expression.
Good luck.
I'll need it.
She can look pretty, shine like the city, make him stop and stare. She can cross his path, hope he does the math, that 1 + 1 is 2. But he's gotta be the one to reach out and take her hand, play his part and protect her heart. That's what makes a man. He's gotta woo her. He's gotta woo her. He's gotta woo her into love. She was patient, though it was blatant. They were quite the match. After a while, he made the move, dial 7 keys to get her on the phone. Then he wooed her. Then he wooed her. Then he wooed her into love. He was clear with his intentions, didn't waver with indecision. Knew he just couldn't live without her. To marry her would be the cure. Then he wooed her. Then he wooed her. Then he wooed her as he should.
When the Day Became the Night by Shiutik. She did it. Sunny Star Scout ended racism after centuries of fights and wars and downright alienation between the three races. She and her friends managed to save all that was lost, and by bringing back friendship, magic soon returned.
Don't wait for me, honey. Don't wait, 'cause I'm always heading your way.
was a busy afternoon. A lot of explanations were due. Earth ponies learning that Pegasi and unicorns weren't, in fact, out to get them. All of them had a lot to unlearn. But Sunny and her friends were patient and diligent, and they were together all afternoon long. With their newly returned magic, all ponies pitched in to help rebuild Sunny's lighthouse. The Pegasi had flown straight to Zephyr Heights as soon as they could to share the good news. But the sisters remained. By dinner time, the lighthouse was good as new, and the unicorns started walking back to Bridlewood, all but one. "I don't want to leave you just yet," Izzy admitted, as Sunny carefully hanged the repaired picture frame on its usual spot. "I know we're done, but what if you need help with something else?" Sunny chuckled softly. She was exhausted. It had been the longest 3 days of her life, but she knew exactly what Izzy was talking about. She turned to see Hitch in her kitchen making dinner. Zip was moving some furniture to try and leave the house as before, but mainly to try out her now functional wings. Pip was taking pictures of the rest, saving those glorious memories for the future. "How do you all feel about a sleepover today?" Sunny finally said, earning a thankful smile from Izzy. Hitch looked up from the pot he'd been stirring and smiled and nodded. Zip finally let the furniture in peace and joined her sister and Hitch in the kitchen, without actually answering anything. The group of friends agreed to stay together one night more. Izzy helped Hitch serve the soup, and they all ate. They tried to recount the events of the previous days, their adventures, their feelings, and ultimately their hopes for the future. That last thing made them all unsure, for even if they had done the impossible and achieved peace and friendship between the three races, they still lived cities apart. When this whole thing was done, Izzy would have to return to Bridlewood and the sisters to Zephyr Heights. Another silent agreement not to talk about the future. Not yet. When dinner was done, they arranged pillows and blankets all over the living room, and, one by one, first Izzy, then Sunny, then Zip, they fell asleep. Pip laid her fluffy pink body over the pillow concoction, thankful for the well-deserved rest. But, despite how tired she felt, she shifted over and over, unable to fall asleep. She slowly opened her eyes again, taking in the familiarity of her surroundings. It was the same living room she spent the afternoon repairing. Her sister and friends were lying beside her, snuggled with each other. She watched them dream peacefully, maybe expecting to share said dreams. For a moment her eyes locked with Hitch's. He was awake as well, also scanning his surroundings. He smiled apologetically at her, and she returned his smile. "You can't sleep either?" he whispered, careful not to wake up any pony else. She shook her head. Hitch slowly stood up, without a sound, and gestured for Pip to follow him. They went up the wooden platform with pulley system and up to the top of the lighthouse. Neither said anything for a while. They sat together against the railing and looked at the houses and stores in the dark, lighted by the starry sky and a pale moon. Pip was amazed by how quiet Maritime Bay was. The only noise she could hear was the distant waves in the shore and Hitch's breathing. The reminder that, after all, even in her restless nights, she was no longer alone. "So," Hitch finally said after a few minutes, "what keeps a princess up at night?" Pip sighed. She knew that question was lingering in the air, waiting to be asked, but truly she had no answer for it. "I don't really know," she shrugged, avoiding the stone's look. "I guess I just don't want to go back to my old life, not after all of this." He nodded. If it makes you feel better, I don't think anything will ever be the same. That somehow made her feel even worse. She said so. Oh, Hitch said, sorry. She smiled and met his gaze. No, I'm sorry, she said. It's not your fault, or any pony's for that matter. I've been thinking. Before you all, I didn't have any friends at all. I barely talked to Zip. Most of the times I doubt she even likes me. I guess the future scares me because I don't want it to be like the past. He listened carefully, trying to think of something to make the beautiful Pegasus feel better. Under the light of the moon, she looked radiant. Not that she didn't look radiant before, she always did. But after the first time he saw her, this was the only other occasion he got to look at her long and slow, to really take in her beauty. Her curled purple hair was messy, her fluffy wings sparkled as if they had glitter, and her eyes, so tired, so pretty. His heart skipped a beat every time she looked at him. How could such a graceful, talented and gorgeous pony not have any friends? As long as I exist, you will never be truly alone, he said, without realizing how deep that was. Sorry, you must think I'm pretty corny. She giggled. Even her laughter was adorable. He wished he could listen to that laugh 1,000 times more. Thanks, Hitch. You too, she said. I guess neither of us will ever have to be alone now. He smiled as the two slowly leaned close to each other, side by side. Pip leaned against Hitch's muscular shoulder, an electric feeling flooding her entire body. He felt so good to be around. At least, now that the secret's out, I won't have to keep up appearances, she said after a short silence. I don't even know if I'll be a princess after today. Why not? Our entire royalty was built on a lie, she explained. Maybe it's for the best. A new government, a new ruler, and a new identity for Pip. No longer Princess Petals, the perfect pop star. I can finally be the real Pip. He smiled for what seemed to be the millionth time. His hoof slowly went against her back as she shuddered. The beachy breeze was turning cold as the night got older. Pip noticed this as well, and she unfolded one of her wings to surround his body under it. What is the real Pip like? He asked. She's passionate a lot, she said, a genuine smile leaking from her mouth. She's curious and bubbly, and she makes 1,000 mistakes, but she keeps trying. She loves and is loved by her friends, and she doesn't have to share every second of every hour on the internet. That sounds exactly like some pony I know, Hitch said. I like her. She likes you too, Pip replied, then yawned. And Hitch? What's the real Hitch like? He is calm and cheerful, and he loves to dance. This made Pip sit upright again as she incredulously looked at the pony beside her. What? You dance? I mean, I'm terrible, but I like it, he said, laughing a little. Maybe the real Pip should teach the real Hitch how to dance. She smiled, leaning on him again. Deal? Deal, he replied, and slowly they fell asleep against each other. There was no way to know what the future held, but after that night, the 5 friends understood that as long as they existed, none of them would ever truly be alone, and that was enough for them.
You'll always be the one I wanna midnight. You'll always steal my breath away. Yeah. You'll always be my heart, my love. Every second, every day.
The 500,000th Story on Fanfiction by The Major Techie. 5 minutes ago, there was nothing except a tissue box, the kind of tissue box that keeps a certain company, but that is not of importance at the moment, so just forget about it for now, okay? And then there was Twilight. Remember her? Twilight Sparkle was a sad pone who, by the power of bad fanfiction, and not Grayskull since they couldn't afford it, is in love with trees and pineapples. More pineapples than trees, but at some point that got changed throughout the rest of the fic. So this is the one standing testament to her relationship with spiky fruit. More than a friend. Love. The kind of freaky deaky love you can only truly have with a citrus fruit. But not with mangoes. They know what they did, and their war crimes can never be atoned for. There was also a potato, but it was wearing a tree costume, so actually never mind, there aren't any potatoes. Twilight Sparkle felt a strange sadness when the sun set, except there wasn't a sun yet, so she ate 3 trees and went back in time to create Princess Celestia, imbuing her with the love of trees. Oh dear Celestia, do I love pineapples! Twilight licked the pineapple sitting in front of her, but in a non-sexual way. Absolutely non-sexual. Nuh-uh, no horny here. You will be bonked if you have such thoughts. Celestia was lonely, so she summoned Luna into existence using a bulldozer called Water Bottle. This will not be important later. Oh boy, am I confused already? Princess Luna looked at her moon watch. Oh, would you look at the time? It's almost 1/2 croissant. I must flee to my virgin games. Then a demon arose from the ground. A meter scratched at 3 American toes and a pocket knife behind them all. Noodle arms and everything. Hot pockets for everyone, a vendor announced through the oversized megaphone. We have all sorts of flavours ranging from Flim and Flam's nuclear bunker, the sounds of colours, 3 different types of poisonous tree frogs, the bulldozer from earlier, a rare jar that none shall speak of, a TV static, oh, and it even includes my favourite, rusty nails. Twilight decided that enough was enough and called into existence the rest of reality, centred of course around pineapple-themed books with tree-themed, tree-shaped bookmarks that were scented with trees. Tree. Haha, that's 3 trees. Threes. Suddenly, it started to rain goblins and orcs. 23 of them to be exact. They tasted like trees, but Twilight Sparkle doesn't know that. Yet. A shadow becomes darker as something steps through it.
I am Lord Frosted Flakes,
said the shadow.
Who are you?
Twilight couldn't help but feel admiration and perspiration for the shadow. It was more than good, it was great, and it tasted great too. Silly shadow man, who are you? Pinkie Pie tore herself into reality, pointing a hoof at the shadow. You say funny words.
I am the terror,
proclaimed the shadow.
that flaps in the night.
Suddenly, a blast of double trouble rainbows shot from his eyes and mouth.
Fus, ro, da!
Ah! Pinkie finished, also shooting rainbows from her own eyes and mouth. The blast was so beautiful and powerful that it turned into ice so everyone could see it forever and ever onward. Applejack, who didn't exist until now, wiped a tear from her eye. Ah, I love it. She suddenly held up a very human-looking thumb. It became immediately clear that she was just Dale Gribble in a horsehead mask. Lyra, sweating profusely, obviously didn't care about this. Her hetero life mate, Not Bon Bon, sat beside her, staring off into distance stoically. This section has been left intentionally blank to give your brain cell a rest. Okay, that's enough.
Se la pasa whatsappeando, wow, wow, wow. Se la pasa whatsappeando, wow, wow, wow.
Meanwhile, in Florence, Italy, nothing relevant to this story happened. Meanwhile, off screen from our A-plot, Applejack was planting some kind of seeds. This seems vaguely symbolic, Celestia said, swooping in from literally nowhere. But I don't get it. What do you mean you don't get it? It's, she gestured to the baked clay around her, the seeds sitting lifelessly in neat little rows. They appeared to be in some sort of metaphysical representation of reality, an amalgamation of words without corporeal form. Duh. Perhaps you could explain it to me. I don't quite like your tone there. Princess? I don't quite like the way you inflected that sentence as a question. Applejack threw a hooful of seeds at her. Don't you make fun of my accent or the buddies I use as fertilizer. Seeds flew into Celestia's mouth. She chewed them experimentally and realised with a twinge of surprise that they were tree, or perhaps pineapple seeds. For the fourth, or was it fifth, time that day, Celestia regretted creating omnipotence and subsequently giving it to herself. Twilight certainly didn't, however, and she continued licking her pineapple aggressively. It was so delicious, nothing could stop her. Nothing! Respond to the comment below with your fanfiction username, or whatever social media you prefer, to be credited in the description, Twilight said, pineapple barbs sticking from her tongue and giving her a distinctly Appaloosan drawl. Twilight then had a sudden urge to make Spike write with a pineapple-shaped pen. Spike, however, was too busy drawing manga and writing fanfiction with an apple-shaped pen. Applejack, the real one, clearly approved. The Shadow did not, so he combined the pens and decided to ride a motorcycle and shoot people with banana pudding. No! Spike said upon losing his beloved pen and rolling up into a ball, crying for the loss of his love. Twilight tried to cheer him up by buying him a copy of Shadow the Hedgehog, but Spike burned it to a crisp and suddenly fire. "Ow! The edge!" said Spike. The hedge continued to beat up Spike until Twilight Sparkle finally said, "Screw this!" and turned it into a pineapple. She salivated at it for the next minute and a half. Then suddenly her spit started transforming into sapient beings as well. So water was created on the 8th day of the week. The sentient beings started to fire up their very metallic arms and were walking towards the obscure references from about 2 pages ago. The pineapples and trees at this point are in a quantum superposition, so nobody knows for sure whether or not they're trees or pineapples. Perhaps they're both. "My trees!" Twilight screeched. H9I2JA-02, which was the emergency code for life itself. The reality preserver boats materialised out of the closest available tree, bobbing softly in the stream of time itself. The captain of life itself came out to test one, but he was eaten by Pac-Man. Pinky, never allowing a friend to be without emergency tree, became the existence in itself and put one in front of Twilight. When Twilight felt some relief, Pinky smashed it with a hammer and screamed, "You've been gnomed!" The purple book horse screamed calmly, "How dare you! We still need a plot for this thing," Pinky exclaimed. "So no trees for you. Fetch me a shrubbery."
A what?
A shrubbery.
Shrubbery!
Well, what kind of shrubbery?
Shrubbery!
I have one.
The Shadow, who no one remembers, says as he points to Spike, "You, lad, are quite the thorny individual." Spike stared at him and said, "Shut up, Kevin. Go to your PlayStation 4 and play Farm Simulator and Lego Star Wars."
Shrubbery!
Oh, okay.
Was all the Shadow said. "I also have a
Shrubbery!
A potato said, waving one around. "Take mine." But the potato was too late, for the scene was already transitioning.
Guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando. Guau, guau, guau.
How long is this fanfic going to take, Beanie? This is hurting my brain cell. asked some random guy from the corner of the street. Random guy from the corner of the street proceeded to be yeeted into the story in full force. Now the protagonist, as we forgot that this is still MLP. "You fool!" said the Princess of the Night, who jumped out of a moon pie. "We're only 1,000 words into this fanfic. Descend into the chaos." "Hey, that's my line!" a certain chaos-wielding Draconicus exclaimed off-screen. The AA batteries she was holding from her controller were still dangling from Princess Luna's wings. "Where did you come from?" the lavender, purple, lilac, violet, mauve, light, indigo, magenta, orange, or just purple pony said. "I hide in your pastries every Tuesday waiting for the perfect moment." Princess Luna munched on a banana. "'Tis now when the opportunity presents itself." So the curtains fell and opportunity came walking through. She was the most pretty thing the ponies ever saw. Then suddenly, that discontinued Tiger Woods themed Gatorade, the ultimate life form, materialized from the mare's mane. We will now observe a moment of silence for the brain cells lost during the writing and reading and editing of this glorious cultural phenomenon. Many were lost, and their sacrifice shall not be forgotten. Press F to pay respects. No, your other F. Your other F. And then Doom happens, as Doom music began playing, as the Doom guy from the Doom game suddenly came out from the Doomy Doom ground. Doom 1. Applejack cackled, the classic Doom music blaring overhead as she pulled out a BFG. Gotta fill the gaping space here, so please relax and eat tacos with your siren waifu. "Why did you say 1? asked unnamed background pony number 912, of whom you don't know how or when they got in this story, and we don't either. Is that even a correct sentence?" Yes, it is. Thank you. No problem. Unnamed background pony number 912 greeted random guy from the corner of the street, whilst Apal Haas and Doom Guy frolicked with Doom Guy's yellow dog waifu, meaning they were looking at Maze. Gotta keep this T-rated. Gosh darn it. In the fields, Rainbow Dash was doing something far more important. "Oh, tissue box," she hummed, a flutter in her breath. "How I love you so." The tissue box responded, "I have a filly friend already, and it's kind of serious. We're on like the 5th date already." "Wait!" Rainbow wailed as the tissue box excused herself from the table. "Please, don't go. I'm so lonely. I haven't even shown you my alicorn OC. It's black and red and really cool. It makes me think of you. I am sorry, but I must go. Goodbye, my lady." "Glory! May you sing forever in Stovercore." The tissue box leaped off the table in slow motion. Soon it went poof and teleported to the other side of the story, while Rainbow Dash could do nothing but sob hysterically and eat a tub of ice cream. Twilight Sparkle, the lavender purple or lilac purple tree/pineapple loving pony, woke up at that moment, realizing she had been sleeping through the entire last 1.5 pages.
Relatable,
said the shadow everyone forgot about. Stop ending sentences with so many propositions. No? Kui? Spike, are you there? Applejack. Was she even with us the last time we mentioned in this fanfic? She yelled, but alas, no response, except trees. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Twilight sang, trotting to the door. With intense merriment, she transformed into Celestia because she had no pineapples close enough to sustain herself in an elevated state. Hello, hi there. We're here to inform you that your car insurance payments are overdue. If you do not pay in the form of Apple iTunes gift cards within the next 30 days, you will have to be evicted from this plane of reality. I have a water bottle. Can I pay with that? No. Princess Luna appeared from the vortex and proceeded to steamroll them with her fabulous flying hover bulldozer named water bottle. I said, could? Lo siento no hablo inglés. Hola compañero hispanohablante, said Sombra, dressed as an overly stereotypical or just the standard for Hasbro's designer's Mexican pony. Sombra es una palabra española que significa shadow, said Sombra, which probably means something like taco, tortilla, ja ja ja. I fix the plumbing. So anyway, the sales pony who just tried to sell Celestia car insurance even though she herself is faster than a car said, are you willing to... He proceeded to get clobbered over the head with King Sombra, not by Sombra mind you, with Sombra, because Sombra is second best husbando and number one best pony hammer. Spike saw this and teleported to a different place to laugh. Sombra heard this and said, no creo que si gracioso. Bob the Builder, that savage, handsome beast of a Puerto Rican man. OMG, a Bob the Builder crossover. Yas! Poggers, YOLO, swag, Fortnite, sus, lament, go, brr, TikTok. Witnessed the whole process of Sombra, the hammer of Horseland, clobbering innocent ponies over the head with his own body, as he wielded Sombra as his ultimate weapon of choice. I'm begging you to stop this, Discord said. These portals weren't even made by moi. And to end off this scene, Twibright Sprinkle decided to reset the universe to how it once was, just herself, the trees and pineapples, and the mailbox with an unknown filly friend. Also that tissue box from earlier, who unknowingly also shares that same unknown filly friend. This will never be revisited. Twilight took a bite out of a nearby tree. All was at peace for a few seconds until she heard Fluttertree scream in horrid pain, holy fucking mother of God, why the heck would you do this to me, Twilight? Oh my God, ah! Frick you, stated the Sprinkle Spruce Springsteen, who had somehow morphed into a towering spruce upon filling her mouth with bark and splinters. Then suddenly there were trees everywhere. Not a single bad fanfic in sight, except for the one you're literally freaking reading right now, you
I, Princess Celestia.
fucking moron. Haha, who are we kidding? Ourselves? This section once again left intentionally a blank. This section once again left intentionally blank to allow for a sanity break. Enjoy all the delicious vitamin blank. It's blank flavored, the same blank flavor you know and love. Blank. Join the hive mind, assimilate into the bad fan fiction. We are the avengers of insanity in need of recruits. At this point, fan favourite OC Nix von Nixington of Fantastic New York Knicks, just Nix actually, strode onto the scene. Oh, hi mum. You've got a lot of ass. She gestured vaguely at the tree juice dripping from Twilight's mouth. Are you okay? And why are there so many pineapples? I thought they didn't grow on trees. But now they do, Twilight cheered, stuffing an entire tree down her throat. The shadow that was forgotten about said,
Darkness calls but never returns my messages. It's really annoying. Come to think of it, has Darkness changed its phone number recently?
Something responded.
Yes, I have.
It was then that the story had a gritty reboot, as is typical in modern contemporary media, the scene changing to that of gritty cyberpunk themes with hefty amounts of biopunk to increase the shock value to the average consumer. Okay? Nick shook her head and the sound of a single marble in a tin can was heard. Yeah, no. I've played this song and danced and I didn't like it then, so I'm out. She then proceeded to dab herself away. You know you want to be a creepy flesh demon in a meat suit, don't lie to yourself, a being replied, a single neuron bouncing around in its hollow skull like a DVD screensaver. Discord's high again, isn't he? Nick sighed. Right, excuse me while I go wrangle sense out of the senseless, she said, rolling up her sleeves. A giant squeaky Thor hammer emerged from a portal and bonked Discord with a triumphant squeak. Discord stood still in silent contemplation for a moment, before opening his mouth to let loose a low and pathetic squeak as he was suddenly banished to Ohio, the best place to find 1. More Ohio. That's all. Remember, you are never truly safe from Ohio. Ha! More like Blowhio. Get it? 'Cause, yeah, you get it. Nobody knows who said that? Be sure to take a 15-minute break every hour when using the internet to rest your eyes. And hey, if you're reading this, wow, you know you could be doing something else, right? While you're reading this story. So that means, okay, yeah, you're in the right place. Good going, champ. Rarity strutted into the scene for 15 seconds, long enough to look around. Firstly, why wasn't I invited to this anniversary celebration before now? Secondly, why is it so ridiculously Oh, Twilight's having a tree crisis again. I'll get the cheese. Pineapples are a bush, you absolute buffoon, she sighed, walking out of the scene, only to be shortly ambushed in short order by pineapples who do not grow on trees and are tired of people getting it wrong. Take me with you, Nix cried, galloping after her. The shadow began pulling Nix in the opposite direction, saying,
No.
What even are you?
I am Void Spirit, the destroyer of the universes and beloved childhood franchises and nostalgia,
said the spirit.
All your base are belong to me, I think. Please?
All the readers laughed. Just kidding, this joke sucks. Just like your mum last night. Ha! Every character that has appeared in this story suddenly dabbed all at once, creating a shockwave so massive that reality itself was torn asunder. Say my name, said Big Chungus while continuously dabbing. Sanity Interlude, another spot to restore your brain cells and mourn over the ones lost. Oh, Sanity, my favourite, bellowed Pinkie Pie, before literally eating all of it. Yes, even yours, so I guess there ain't no sanity for you now. Sucks to be you. The actual Sanity Interlude. This is so Orwellian, said Twilight as she closed her calendar copy of 1984. Wait, we're allowed to be sane now? She asked. Seriously, my document is starting to lag. Only between the lines that say Sanity Interlude, Discord replied. Sanity Interlude number 4. This is actually number 3. You have been bamboozled. No sanity here. I'm literally playing that game right now. Well, not right now, but in the past few days. I'm doing the route where androids rise against humans and everybody dies. I'm sad, said the one who had the original idea for this story, as he ate a mushy bowl of peas and lima beans. Celestia kicked down the door as All Star started to play in the background. Intruder alert! Red Pinky is in the base, said the announcement lady as Among Us music began playing. A red Pinky is in the base? Hut, 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 hut. Protect the briefcase, said White Soldier. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Fireman's good job, mate, said AJ. It's challenging work out of doors. I guarantee you'll not go hungry, because at the end of the day, long as there's 2 people left on the planet, someone is going to want someone fed. Dad? Dad? Yeah, not a crazed vegan, Dad. I'm a farmer. Well, the difference being one is a job and the other's a mental sickness, but I'll be honest with you, my parents do not care for it. Oranges? Look, mate, you know who has a lot of oranges? My aunt. Professionals have standards. Apples? Apples? Apples. Sanya. Okay, now actually back to our regular programming. Doing your mum, shouted Spy as he tossed down a binder full of images of him and Twilight's mum to the sound effect of a cartoon bonk. Sister, Celestia screeched, I desire money. No, Luna shouted in response. I spent the entire equestrian treasury on microtransactions. That is when Sonic calmly said, I'm Sonic, Sonic the Hog Hedge. You're too slow. I'm crying right now. This is beyond hilarious. I swear to Celestia, if this gets actually posted, I'm going to laugh my blue arms off for months straight. Sonic then did a line of Rainbow Dash so he could be as speed as possible. Then did a speed run of life with a generic and overused song playing in the background whilst it happened. He was then kicked from the story for being an annoying ass character. Finally, he's gone, said everyone and no one. Twilight Sparkle stared at the whiteboard in front of her. This was it, the final exam. She picked up her chalk, setting the tip on the board. Celestia secretly wondered if Twilight actually understood how whiteboards worked, but didn't bring it up since that wasn't part of the test. So anyway, Celestia tapped the whiteboard. You have 3 minutes left before the universe explodes. Can you tell me what your answer is? Well, at least 40? Responded Twilight. That is correct, said Celestia. Then all the readers laughed at the obnoxious Rick and Morty reference, then at the original author for opening the document publicly. I mean, what were they thinking? Maximize chaos. That's what they were thinking. This is the internet we are talking about. It is, after all, the point of the mask is. What mask, you might ask? We're not answering that. Over 9,000 readers proceeded to die from cringe. Those were the weak ones. Suddenly, in the background and growing progressively louder, we could hear, Country road, take me home to the play. I think that's what it says anyways. And the rest of the lyrics, la, 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 la. And they heard it as you can read it, without pause between the sentences. Finally, my colonoscopy papers came back, exclaimed Blue Blood as he swiftly and thoroughly shredded the letter and pulled out the document. What? This can't be. 20% British? No. Wait. Blue Brood screamed in agony as he felt his entire jaw squirm in discomfort, his teeth arranging into a snaggle-toothed grin. Oi, blimey, this is all bungadong, drongalong. He was never seen again, and he was dragged into the abyss by his spindly hands. Hello, said a wall-eyed Pegasus. Do you or some pony close to you suffer from constant name shift syndrome? Can nobody agree on what to call you? Do you often miss orders or get the wrong mail because your name's always different? Don't worry, there is hope. The Department of Obscure Identification can assist you and is here to tell you how their best agent, me, proclaimed Vinyl Scratch. People shift my name a lot, like a lot. Some people actually think my name is Sinal Vcratch, Vcratchil, or Isabella, or even DJ Pon 3, or even Vinyl Scratch. Wait, that last one's right. Me too, Dr. Hooves added. I don't know where the hay they got the name Time Turner from. Dr. Hooves sniffled and wiped a tear from his eye. I'm just thankful I no longer wake up in Britain. And at the same time, a hushed Brit shed his own tear for his forgotten son. Me three, said Greg, the unnamed green guard from the G5 promo image. Hi, Greg. Me four, said Rick Astley. We do not speak of what comes next. But the doy is here to help, Sinal continued, adjusting her glasses. With their patented 13-step program, they can make any society agree on what your name actually is. But what if the doy means devilishly overt imposter? Sus, haha. Somebody laughed to themselves before clutching their head and rocking back and forth as uncontrolled giggles leaped from pursed lips. Haha, sussy, haha, get out of my head, get out, out, out. I'm glad you asked, random background pony. It's true that devilishly overt imposters have often been the leading cause in name shift syndrome, Vinyl smirked roguishly, which is why the real doy has developed the best meme-based weaponry to capture them and bring them to justice. The DOI takes your identity seriously, very seriously, so seriously that the next 3 paragraphs of this crackfic are going to be a serious story. Big Mac committed identity theft. One day, Big Mac committed identity theft. The end. Well, that serious idea didn't work. I'm out, said Vinyl as she jumped through the window of the building they were apparently in. Identity theft is no laughing matter, replied the same pony as they looked down upon Vinyl's plummeting body. Mwahahaha! I beg to differ, said Identity Theft, smirking from behind the indoor bush. My identity, Big Mac gasped, who is now in the actual fanfic too, it seems. After all, he is a princess. He has the right to appear in any fanfic he chooses. He is also a queer icon, which grants him indescribable power. This is the most incoherent narrative I've ever been a part of, Twilight grumbled, and I've been a part of actual trollfics. She ate a tree slice. Pineapple juice dribbled down her chin. Well, it's still a narrative, Pinky pointed out. The first 5,000 words or so are just going to be memes and nonsense. But after that, the authors are actually going to recognize patterns and there's likely to be a story. Is that what our original author naively thought? I mean, look, you're eating a tree slice. Unfortunately, there exists nothing beyond 5,000 words. Yes, I know, but still, it's just so much to trudge through. Tell you what, we'll have an unwritten time skip where you can be perfectly sane, alright? Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to make sure we don't get struck by any copyright laws. Might as well, Twilight muttered. My brain hurts. The readers must have a much bigger headache. 7 days passed in which nothing plot relevant happened. Ooh-woo. Sanity interlude. Ooh-woo. Restore your brain cells and mourn the ones you've lost here, unless you use circuits or some other method of non-neurotransmitter intelligence, in which case you probably have a festering hatred of organic life upon viewing this cognito hazard of a fanfic. Look at this smile. He's so happy. Guys, do y'all think that this fanfic might be getting a little too out of hand? Asked Applejack. Nah, said Pinkie Pie. I'm liking it. What are hands, by the way? You're smoking that stuff too much, AJ. You may need someone marked with power, Discord said from nowhere and everywhere. Then all of a sudden, a tissue box with an unknown Philly friend appeared, who destroyed the entire in-law universe of this fanfic. All that remained, once again, was Twilight Sparkle and a pineapple. The tissue box remained as well, drifting along the infinite darkness of reality. After all the chaos, after all the insanity, all that remains is peace. A calm wind whistled through her mane, which is odd, as there was no wind to exist yet, while the world began to reform for the third time. Just ignore the source of this wind. Twilight! A familiar voice sliced through the fading darkness. Twilight, are you there? Can you hear us? Yes, I can hear the sound waves of your voices through the wind that comes from an unknown source. Where are you? The darkness was now entirely gone, replaced by a serene landscape, sprawling from horizon to horizon, a wide shimmering lake, towering mountains high above, aided in their height seemingly by the very butts themselves. An open meadow, filled to the brim by grasses and flowers. Twilight closed her eyes. Twilight! The voices called again. She opened them. Where were these voices coming from? She turned her head in every direction. She remained in solitude. Twilight! One voice shouted this time. High above, a strange shockwave erupted in the air, spreading its rainbow patterns across the sky. Twi! The rainbow-maned mare responsible landed in front of Twilight. She swatted aside the pineapple, though she appeared to be momentarily distracted by the tissue box. You've got to come back. Come back? Twilight cocked her head. Why would I ever want to leave? I belong here, don't I? No! A pink mare with a long, straight mane emerged from the waters of the lake. This is a fanatical creation of your own mind, a take, if you will, on reality itself. You currently exist within a fanfiction. But, tree. Twilight reached a hoof for the impossible pineapple tree beside her. Come back to us, Twi, another voice called. High above where the shockwave had originated, the sky began to warp. My butts parted, as did the nearby mountaintops. It was as if a hole was punched through the very sky itself, allowing the mare to peer into another reality, her home reality. Come back to us! A mare's face stared through this portal, though distant, it was still clear enough to vaguely recognise. Star? Bright? Twilight squinted, craning her neck. Starlight! Starlight Glimmer corrected. You've been trapped here for days. Do you remember who you even are? I like pineapples, I think. No! Starlight emerged fully from the portal, much to Twilight's horror. This, however, gave way to confusion as the unicorn's horn lit, setting itself down gently beside the mare with the rainbow mane. You are Twilight Sparkle, element of magic, but more importantly, you're our friend. You have to come home, Twi. Home? Home, Twilight repeated. Equestria, you've entered this mess on your own, but we're going to pull you out. Nearby, Applejack and Doom Guy continued their frolicking across the open fields. Oh yeah, and Applejack too. Starlight lit her horn. We were all going to pull Rainbow Dash out of here as well. But... She glared at the Pegasus, who was currently rubbing her face against a box of tissues. Yeah. Anyway, you're the last one here. Do you really want to live in solitude now that everything is settled down? Twilight shook her head. Then it's settled. You're coming with us. Starlight Glimmer proceeded to yeet Twilight Sparkle through the swirling portal, and that, children, is how taxes were made. No pony knows if Rarity's still there, or Big Mac for that matter. Heck, is Celestia still in this thing? Or is it just me, the final voice in the darkness? Man, life's weird that way. Now then, before we go, might I remind you of the might of our Lord and Saviour, Princess Celestia. She's quite literally a living goddess, and she's the bestest goddess. Hurry, spread the word before they find me. Oh dear. The end. Goodbye, and good luck with that headache. Author's note. Well, time to roll the credits. These are the folks with the courage to mark their names and occasionally link them on this dumpster fire. The major techie, organiser and writer of the beginning and ending bits. The new blue brony, the band brony, Nitro Indigo, the Void Caller, the Otter Guy, Sock Puppet, MLP Hero, Barrow Broadcaster, Sweet Banana. Hard to remember number 5384/Wamek, post editor. Master Weaver. Hawthorne Bunny. Marshmallow Pone. Level Dasher, post editor, with the term being used very loosely. Bad Dragon. Ritex. Bicyclet. Beezier Ballad. Thanks for reading. Let's see if fanfic ever reaches the lofty goal of 1 million stories. Now then, you should probably get those brain cells checked. I might open up a doc for a bonus chapter if there's demand for it. I know a lot of folks weren't really able to join in the first time. That is when Sonic calmly said, I'm Sonic the Hog... I'm Sonic the Hog Hedge. You're too slow. I'm crying right now. This is beyond hilarious. I swear to Celestia, if this actually I swear to Celestia, if this gets actually posted, I'm going to laugh my blue arms off for months straight. Flex Tape Fixes Equestria by the Drider Pony. Arcane lightning hissed and spit, arcing between crystal pylons as it tore asunder the boundaries between two worlds. With significantly less fanfare, a small object plopped through the hole and rolled a few feet away, coming to a stop against a lavender hoof. On occasion, Princess Twilight's portal to the human dimension spat out various objects without ceremony or warning. Twilight was convinced that these were samples discreetly sent by either Sunset Shimmer or her own human counterpart for scientific study and analysis. Organic samples to compare with their equestrian counterparts, or sometimes Earth-exclusive materials for her to perform magic analysis on. She did so diligently despite Spike's complaints. He was of the opinion that some human, his bits were on either Rainbow Dash or Pinkie Pie, was just using the portal as a convenient garbage bin for their lunch leftovers and whatever other trash happened to be in their pockets at the time. But this new object fell into neither category. Twilight picked it up with her magic and rotated it curiously. It was a thick roll containing many layers of some reflective rubberized material. It was also still shrink-wrapped in its original packaging, which allowed her to easily dismiss Spike's nonsense. Lazy trash theory. It bore a colourful inscription, but without the portal's imbued translation magic, it was indecipherable. She began to walk back to the kitchen where she'd previously been enjoying a lazy brunch before being interrupted by the sound of the portal opening. Anything interesting today? Spike asked as she entered the kitchen, his mouth filled with a spoonful of ruby O's. Really, they were just gemstone beads that had failed to pass Rarity's exacting standards. Not that he hadn't considered the branding potential of a gemstone cereal. I'm not sure. Twilight floated the roll across the table. The writing didn't translate. Flex tape, Spike read immediately. Strong rubberized adhesive tape, super strong, sticks to any surface, even underwater. New patented formula for extra hold. He tossed it back. Neat, looks useful. Could I borrow some of that actually? There's a leak in my towel that's been keeping me up. Twilight hummed thoughtfully. We should probably test it on some smaller applications first. There's no guarantee that they had the materials of another world in mind when they said that it sticks to any surface. Without a moment's hesitation, Spike took a mostly empty spoonful of gem cereal and bit down. Hard. A louder than average cracking noise heralded a clinking cacophony as he spit his spoon back onto the table in 3 parts. There you go. Spike! Twilight exclaimed. What in the world did you do that for? What? He replied innocently. You said we needed something small to test it on. I meant something that was already broken. Now we're going to be a spoon short the next time we have company. It's not like it really even matters. Spike grumbled huffily. The castle just makes more. Twilight paused. What's that now? He nodded. Yeah, one night I came down for a midnight snack, and I was really out of it and ate through like 5 forks and a butter tray before I realised what I was doing. Next day, I checked the drawer, and we had a complete set again. Huh. Odd. I did not know it could do that. Not the most eloquent of responses, but it conveyed her reaction accurately. But we can study the castle's features another time. Let's focus on one thing for now. Spike grabbed the tape and after getting his claws under the almost flush edge, pulled off a long strip. The flex tape made a strange noise as adhesive parted from rubber, similar to paper ripping, but it also produced a strangely elongated tone that changed pitch the longer he pulled on it, like some peculiar instrument. Spike paused as his ear fins twitched. That just sent the weirdest tingle down the back of my neck. Twilight nodded, folding her ears back to hide the fact that they too had sprung up to attention at the sound. It was oddly satisfying, to say the least. Continuing where he had left off, Spike took the strip and wrapped it around the spoon, binding the shattered handle pieces as tightly as he could. When he finished, it looked identical to the rest of the cutlery set save for its new black handle. He gave it a tap. Hey, what do you know? It holds up. He gave the spoon an experimental tug, followed by a stronger one. That's, really strong actually. Twilight took the repaired spoon from him with her magic as she brought it in for closer observation. Although not immediately visible, her magic was also applying twists, tension, and pressure to the spoon from all manner of angles. You're right, it's as strong as any repair spell I know of. She tossed it back once more. Could you apply a bit of fire to it? I'm curious as to its heat tolerance. Spike shrugged and engulfed it in a blaze of flame. Not that much! Much to her surprise, it was entirely not enough. As the light from the fire faded and dimmed, she could clearly see how the bowl of the spoon was shiny and sagging, melted by the sheer heat of the dragon fire. The handle, however, looked untouched. Spike touched it. It's not even hot. I believe this calls for more extensive testing. Twilight levitated Spike to her back and the remaining roll of flex tape to his hand. Where did you say there was a leak? My room, he reminded. With a quick flash of light, they found themselves by the foot of his bed. Spike hopped off Twilight's back as she began scanning the ceiling. All right, where is it? He pointed to the far corner. It was faint, but one could just make out a long, thin crack above the window. Twilight nodded in understanding. Pull me another strip. Spike ripped off another piece, and once again the air was punctuated by that same drawling note. The pair shuddered slightly, each too preoccupied, trying to hide their own reaction to notice that the other was doing the same. With a few beats of her wings, Twilight was airborne. She approached the crack at speed, flex tape in hoof, putting a bit of spin on her ascent. She pulled back a foreleg and slammed the flex tape onto the ceiling with a satisfying smack. She descended slowly, admiring her efforts as she reached the ground. You know, Spike, I never thought that repairing things could be so cathartic. Spike nodded in agreement. Even if he hadn't been the one to do it himself, the flex tape made so many ear-pleasing sounds that even repairing vicariously had its thrill. If only there were more things to fix. You know, he started, I think I remember Starlight saying that one of the pipes in her shower was leaky. Twilight's eyes lit up, followed quickly by her horn. With a flash, they were gone again. Let me give it a go this time, Spike insisted as they arrived in Starlight's bathroom. You got it. He took a strip in his claw after another moment of fascinating ripping music and hopped between ledges before he was finally high enough to reach the shower head. With a long jump and a dramatic "Yah!" he landed the flex tape on the pipe with yet another delightful smacking noise. Twilight laughed and cheered him on. Slap it on, Spike! Slap it on! He did so with wild abandon, adding another 3 layers for an especially strong seal. You were right, Twilight. That felt good. What else can we fix around here? After a moment of silent consideration, an unsettling grin grew between the pair before they vanished in another flash of teleportation magic. Twilight, Spike, I'm back from the Crystal Empire, Starlight Glimmer called as she pushed open the doors to Castle Friendship. It had been a nice visit, but the Crystal Pony still had a few peculiar, anachronistic habits that made her long for the reliable normalcy of the castle and township she'd come to call home. But if only she'd chosen to return at any other time, she might have also been greeted by some of that reliable normalcy. As it was, the foyer of the castle was far from normal. Strips of strange black material marred the decor. They were wrapped around table legs, pressed flush around corners, and slapped at some angle or another on almost every flat surface. A few thin strands dangled objects from the grand chandelier, holding aloft vases and knickknacks that seemed far too heavy to be supported by so little. Even the large spider web crack above the door, courtesy of Rainbow Dash and a bottle of cider and a dare made in jest, had been patched up by an equally large spider web of black strips. Had something happened? Had there been some sort of attack? Some kind of viral crystal contagion? Twilight! She called again, louder this time as concern coloured her voice. Starlight! But the reply she heard in return was surprisingly chipper. With a flash of light, Twilight teleported into the foyer, wearing an elated grin that bordered on manic. I'm so glad you're home. I have so much to show you. Twilight, what? What is all this? This? Twilight grinned. Why, it's only the greatest thing since Star Swirl invented self-slicing bread. She held up a hoof, upon which dangled a ring of the same black material like a comically oversized bracelet. It's flex tape. That's interesting, Starlight forced out. That was it? So Twilight had just decided to put tape on everything? Apparently. In most cases, that would be an obvious sign of mental instability, an inept, changeling replacement, or magical corruption. But on the other hoof, the pony in question was Twilight, so... Oh, you better believe it is, Twilight cheered. Flex tape can fix anything. She leaned in close, so close that Starlight's bubble of personal space became atomically close to her skin. Anything! Well, not anything, I'm sure. Starlight chuckled nervously, falling for the obvious trap. There's obviously some things it can't fix. That's what I thought too, but oh how wrong I was. Twilight hopped back, thankfully giving Starlight room to breathe once more. I have fixed every hole, patched every leak, and repaired every iota of damage that has ever been done to this castle, inside and out. I made a boat out of old newspapers and covered it in flex tape, and the Crusaders have been sailing Ponyville Lake in it all day. It even fixed Twilight's bad attitude about me flex taping everything in her guest room. She raised the accessorized foreleg. And the roll just doesn't run out. Wait, what was that last one? Starlight interrupted. I haven't heard any complaints from her since, or anything at all for that matter. And watch this. Twilight shot a bolt of magic at a patch on the wall, then quickly stepped back. The magic ball bounced off the flex tape like a mirror, then off another and another, and another, crisscrossing the hall, and it passed Twilight and hit the first piece again to complete a circuit. Perfect magical reflectivity! I made a perpetual magic machine! Starlight blinked. That was impressive. Undeniably a feat of magical prowess and engineering, but there were bigger issues at hoof. Even for Twilight, this seemed beyond her normal mania, and there was still that thing with Trixie that she needed somewhat urgent clarification on. But before she could pose a question, Twilight threw her for another loop. From somewhere in the intervening moments, Twilight had pulled out a cardboard box with a practically seamless black covering. She then proceeded to put said box over her head. Starlight! Starlight! She cried like a foal eager to show its mother a new trick. Try to read my mind! This was all getting to be too much. Starlight could only stare at her dear friend, her teacher, and strictly speaking, her sovereign as she waited, rubber box on her head like a freakishly featureless mask, for Starlight to read her mind. Twilight? What? I can't. That's right, you can't, the muffled voice replied. Perfect magic insulation as well, not a single leak. A knocking at the door interrupted their unusual conversation, much to Starlight's relief. Tentatively, a grey head with a golden mane poked in through the door that Starlight had left open. Hello? Any pony in? I have a package for Princess Twilight. Twilight gasped in delight as she cast aside her cardboard casquet. Derpy! Oh, this is a perfect opportunity. Come in, come in! She took hold of the surprise Pegasus in a magic pulling pony package and all into her foyer. You're just in time to help me show Starlight something. Hi, Derpy, Starlight greeted meekly. Hello, Starlight, the male mare replied, but something about the greeting seemed oddly forced. I'm actually kind of busy today, Twilight, so if you could just sign... Right, sorry. Twilight apologised quickly, signing her name on Derpy's clipboard with the proffered quill. Really though, it'll take a second, literally a second. The wall-eyed mare gave a wall-eyed stare to the wall-eyed princess and the unhinged hare. She eyed the package nervously. I really should be going. Busy, busy, busy. She turned to leave, only to be interrupted. Wait, isn't the post office closed on the weekend? Twilight asked. Derpy froze before slowly turning to face the unicorn. Yes, she said tersely, but there were a few packages that were misplaced yesterday, so I'm delivering them now. Twilight smiled. What a thoughtful thing to do. Starlight took a different view. Are you getting overtime for this, or is this out of your personal hours? Overtime, she replied quickly, as if the other had never even been an option worth considering, or she just wanted to hurry the conversation along so she could leave. Well, it looks like this is your last package. There's no harm in waiting a few extra minutes to run the clock and earn a couple extra bits. Questionable workplace ethics aside, Starlight really just desperately wanted a supportive voice of reason to help her bring Twilight down from this flex tape high. Derpy's eyes darted back and forth between the door, Starlight and the package still held in Twilight's hooves. No, I really should be... Oh, just hold still, Twilight said, puffing in exasperation. This won't hurt a bit and you'll thank me later. With a sudden ripping noise, a strip of black flex tape found itself latched to the patch of fur between Derpy's eyes. There! Twilight grinned in self-satisfaction. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? But she was cut off by the sound of panicked screaming. Derpy's eyes went wide as saucers as she scrabbled at her face in panic. Starlight started to step in to help, only to jump back in alarm as Derpy's face suddenly caught fire. Flames consumed her body in an instant, burning away fur and uniform alike, and leaving behind nothing but pitted black tissue. But burned skin was never so smooth, nor did fire usually cause a pony to grow a horn or double in height. In moments, the friendly face of Ponyville's iconic delivery mare was gone, replaced by the horrifying and intimidating stature of Chrysalis, Queen of the Changeling Empire. Or rather, it would have been intimidating if Chrysalis, Queen of the Changeling Empire, were not rolling around on the floor like a foal, with chickenpox screaming, "Get it off! Get it off! Get it off!" Alarmed, but still thinking clearly, Starlight charged up her horn with an offensive spell, except Twilight reacted even faster. Before Starlight could even properly charge her spell, Chrysalis was fastened to the wall. A piece of flex tape adhered securely across each limb and one wrapped around her horn. "Gah! Get it off!" she continued to shriek. "I can't stand having things stuck to my chitin." Starlight rolled her eyes at the dramatics, but clearly nothing was going to progress until she complied. With a swift tug, the strip peeled off the changeling's face, leaving behind a patch of slightly lighter chitin. "Finally!" Chrysalis sighed in relief before glaring at Starlight. "Don't think this changes anything between us. At best you've earned a slightly swifter death when the time comes. Starlight rolled her eyes as the Queen shifted her sneer to the Alicorn Princess. Twilight Sparkle, how easily you've fallen into my trap. Your day of reckoning is at hoof. Twilight raised an unimpressed eyebrow. Seems to me like you're the one who is trapped. Ha! A minor setback. But you were still the fool who let a pony into your castle, unchecked and uncontested. Your naivety is your undoing. Twilight pawed the box which had fallen to the wayside during the confusion. And I suppose part of your plan involved me opening this then? Chrysalis faltered. Her expression of smug superiority slipped off as she mumbled over her words. Wait, no, that line won't make sense if I'm still here. Maybe if I skip ahead towards the end a bit. Her eyes widened suddenly in a moment of true panic. Oh, sweet Queen Prime in the sky, I'm still here! She glanced up only to see that Twilight was almost through the outermost layers of wrapping. Stop! The changeling demanded. If you value the lives of everyone in this castle, you will not open that package. Twilight hesitated. That was certainly a grave threat, an order of magnitude more violent than the Queen's usual rhetoric. On the other hoof, Chrysalis was completely immobile and effectively a hostage herself. Plus Starlight was nearby and more than capable enough to undo any spells or magic effects. And if all else failed, she still had her flex tape. Against Chrysalis's continued protests, she opened the box. Twilight blinked at the ticking bundle of wires and crystals. A bomb? She turned to the captured Queen. You really are running out of ideas, aren't you? This isn't the time for that, you fool! Chrysalis hissed as she fought uselessly against her bonds. Release me before we're all blown to kingdom come, and there's no way to disarm it now that it's been activated. Twilight spun the bomb around, inspecting it surprisingly calmly, given the situation. Yes, you're quite right. This is expertly crafted. There's no way I could break or interfere with it without causing it to go off prematurely. She pinged it with her magic, causing a momentary ripple of magenta light. Anti-teleportation wards as well. Nice touch. Exactly. Now unbind me this instant. Yes, there is absolutely no way to disable this bomb, Twilight mused. But what if I didn't need to break it? What if I fixed it instead? With a speed that rivaled even Pinky's present wrapping abilities, she swiftly swaddled the entire bomb in flex tape, then added a second layer for good measure. Not that it needed it. It's no use! Chrysalis cried, almost sobbing now at the inevitability of her fate. There's no force on Equus that could contain that blast! Oh, sweet Overqueen, take me now! With an anticlimactic whoop, the tape bulged and flexed for a moment before returning to its original shape. Not even a wisp of smoke escaped its perfect binding. Well... Chrysalis coughed awkwardly, trying to quickly move past her embarrassing display of weakness. Well then, curse you, Sparkle! I shall have my revenge anon. The Alicorn did not respond. Sparkle? Twilight turned her attention to her captive, but she did not see the changeling queen as Chrysalis' arch-villain towards Equestria, nor did she see her as an interloper who nearly ruined her brother's wedding. Not even did she acknowledge her as the creature who had just tried to blow her to smithereens. In fact, the only thing she really noticed about the changeling was her legs. Her long princess-like legs, black and smooth as her beloved tape, and also full of holes. So many holes. That's a lot of damage, Twilight whispered. Sparkle? What are you doing, Sparkle? Twilight, get that away from me! You leave my holes alone! No, you'll ruin my queenly aesthetic! Don't worry, Chrysalis. Twilight shushed her with a silly smile on her face. Flex tape will fix that. Flex tape can fix anything! Unicorn Cupcakes by Kaiden.
No more sunny days, no more sunny days. I got a heart that won't behave. I got a mind gonna make me insane.
Sunny arrived at the sheriff's office just after noon with a small box of baked goods on her back. She trot inside to find Phyllis and Hitch discussing the recent disappearance of her son, Sprout, at his desk. "Still no news?" Phyllis asked. "No, I've deputized a few ponies to help search, but no pony has seen him for several days," Hitch explained. Sunny came up to the desk and set her pink box down and opened it up. "I'm so sorry to hear that Sprout is still missing, Phyllis. I made these for you to try and cheer you up." She lifted out one of the treats. "Unicorn cupcake? Freshly baked?" Phyllis gave a weak smile and took the confectionery from Sunny. "Thanks, I appreciate the gesture." She took a bite out of the cupcake, chewing slowly as her eyes rolled up slightly. "Oh, that is so good. I really should get the recipe for these sometime." Sunny smiled. "I'm sure I can find a time for you to stop by and help me bake some." Hitch took one from the box and took a bite. "You definitely keep getting better. These are as good as Argyle used to make." She nodded. "Help yourself. I just thought I'd let you know that I care, and that I'll keep an eye out for Sprout. I know Sprout used to antagonize you, but you're exactly the kind of friend he needs right now. If I see him, I'll be sure to let you know. I know he loves you very much." With that, Sunny turned around and left the station to head back to her lighthouse. It was a beautiful day out, and now that her home had finished reconstruction, everything was going perfectly. She had 4 great friends and at least enough ingredients for 24 more cupcakes.
Gentleness is the final news. I'm so used, I'm so used, I'm so used.
Can we send some more letters out, letting the Pegasine unicorns know they have friends here?
Sunny asked. "Of course we can, Sunny Bunny. We'll do our part for Earth ponies everywhere." They gestured to their hearts and said together, "Hoof to heart." Argyle adjusted his apron and lowered his goggles back over his eyes. He went over to the wooden slab holding an olive Pegasus who had responded to one of the floating letters they had recently sent out. The letter promised they would have friends in Maritime Bay, but instead this drifter had found out that the rumours she heard about Earth ponies were not exaggerated. "Now you just need to take the scalpel and cut the lateral tendon of the distal muscle here." Argyle took a small marker and put a black dot on the Pegasus's wing. "It will disable their wing's ability to flap, and a little further down you can find the joint to remove the wing." He made another mark. The mare on the table whimpered and tried to say something through the belt that was gagging her.
"Okay, Daddy."
Sunny clambered up onto the table and took the scalpel in between her teeth. She slowly and carefully made the incision where her father had shown her, slowly separating the flesh to a slow trickle of blood. She saw the stringy white tendon and severed it with minimal force. The tension on it caused it to snap and recede beneath the skin. "Well done." Argyle beamed with pride as she began to work on the joint to remove the rest of the wing. "We can clean the bone and add this wing to our collection. There isn't much meat in the wing itself, so there's not much to cook with. However, that doesn't mean we'll be wasteful. The thin bones of the wings make for excellent unicorn horns to put on cupcakes." Sunny did her best to ignore the flailing Pegasus and not get knocked off the table. After a couple minutes of intense focus, she'd finished severing the wing and spit out the scalpel.
"I did it!"
"Yes, you did. Now why don't you head up and shower while I close the wounds? Tomorrow I'm going to teach you about the locations of all the major arteries and veins. Then we'll make some more treats for your friends."
"Yes, Daddy."
Sunny jumped off the table and ran over to the ladder that led out of the basement. She had several red splotches on her fur from an artery that had supplied blood to the wing. One of the most important rules of their work was to always clean up. After all, Sunny couldn't spread friendship and joy if she looked like an extra in a Judgment Day movie. Sunny was softly singing a song to herself about today being her day as she opened and closed the front door to her lighthouse. She set down her saddlebag, made sure the curtains were drawn and the front door locked, then headed back towards the trap door. Beneath a small rug was the entrance to the basement. It had been damaged by the collapse and wasn't on any blueprint of the lighthouse. Argyle had dug it out himself to facilitate his study of ponies and their innate magic. What the eye couldn't see, Argyle had tried to find more invasively. Perhaps the inability to perform magic was due to a physical change, and he needed only to dig deep enough into a unicorn's mind to prove it. Sunny opened the trap door and carefully went down the steps, closing it behind her. She could hear the TV playing. Several soft, gagged screams were emitted by the tiny speakers built into the old CRT device. "Sprout, I'm home," Sunny beamed as she trotted over to the Earth Pony. "Oh look, the recording of our sessions is at the best part." She pointed up to the TV. "This was when I gelded you." Sprout cried and whimpered, unable to look away from the television. His eyes were bloodshot and wary, the eyelids held open by metal clamps to ensure he had to watch every moment of his torture again and again while Sunny was running errands. "Oh, don't be so pouty. You had this coming after you wrecked my house and nearly killed Izzy." She looked down at the stallion, who was now missing both hind legs. The stumps had been sorted shut professionally. After all, Sunny had years of experience. She checked the straps on his forelegs were still tight, but not blocking blood flow, then undid his gag. "Phyllis says hi. She loved the cupcakes you made for her. Who knew the pony fresh was just the savoury ingredient you needed to balance out the sweetness of cupcakes?" Sunny asked. Sprout swallowed a couple times before he could speak. Please, I want my mommy," he sobbed, snot running down his face, along with tears and drool from where the cruel gag had fastened against his lips. "Oh, she's doing just fine without you, you know." Sunny sat down next to him to look up and watch the recording with him. "There's a lot more connective tissue than you'd think supporting the testes. I wonder why they still end up sagging with age. Not that it matters now. Your beloved mummy is digesting yours as we speak." He broke out in another bout of ugly crying as he mumbled about his mum. "At least I used painkillers. It's more than you deserve, you know, spreading all that hatred and fear. Well, who is afraid now?" Sunny laughed. "You know what the best part is?" Sprout sucked up and swallowed the snot and drool in his mouth. No, what?" "All that time pretending to love Pegasi and unicorns as a cover, and it turns out that's what ended up restoring our magic." Sunny cackled. "I mean, we dissected so many ponies to learn the truth. We did what we had to for Earth Pony kind, and in the end, my charade about friendship is what saved us." She started laughing again, and it took her a couple minutes to stop, and Sunny got quiet. "Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it. I have friends now. I could stop, but I don't want to, and I definitely can't let you go after what you did, and after what I've taken from you." Sprout started chewing on his lip as he tried not to panic. He'd been in this basement for days and knew better than to antagonize Sunny. She'd shown him some rather creative and painful uses for her tools when he talked back to her. "Still, it has been lonely since my father passed. I suppose once you've been delimbed, I could keep you around as a body pillow. It's either that or..." Sunny ran a hoof across Sprout's throat. He gulped and tried to pull his weight up a bit with his forelegs to get away from her hoof. Sprout wasn't sure he wanted this torment to continue, but he didn't want to die either. He could see the sorrow in Sunny's eyes as she looked across the room at a photo of Argyle, and had an idea. Could I keep at least 2 legs? It's not like..." like I'm going to crawl away and it'll let me hug you? Sunny looked up at the television and was lost in thought for a moment as Sprout's left hind leg had a tourniquet fastened to it. As a rule, Argyle and Sunny didn't harm Earth ponies. Of course, most Earth ponies weren't obnoxious idiots bent on world domination. The video continued to replay the part when she removed his second leg. With the blood flow blocked, it had not made too much of a mess as she carefully removed the limb the same way a careful toddler might disassemble a set of building blocks. She had carefully cleaned and preserved the leg's skeleton so she could put it on display alongside the other skeletal remains of both Unicorn and Pegasi. Sprout's leg had higher bone and muscle density than a unicorn, and was almost twice as thick as a Pegasus femur. "You know what?" Sunny said. "I suppose you've suffered enough, at least for now. If you promise not to whine or run, or basically do anything to piss me off, then I'll let you keep your last limbs and your life." Sprout gulped and nodded his head. He could feel his hoof itching as he watched the video, spasming as the scalpel hit the nerve. The phantom pains got worse the longer he watched himself carved up on repeat. Finally, Sunny clicked a remote control and turned off the horror show. The pain in the missing appendage faded to dull pins and needles as Sunny began to unstrap the tormented stallion. The bed upstairs was a welcome comfort after spending a few days on an itchy wooden slab. Sprout hadn't had much sleep or much food during his stay here. The porridge had an odd taste to it, and either Sunny enjoyed eating dry bits of cardboard or had taken a very waste not, want not attitude in a cooking recipe. For most of the night, Sprout was pinned against Sunny, who hugged and cuddled him like she was trying to apply pressure to a bleeding wound. Her clinginess was the least of his problems, because every time he tried to pull himself away, she would subconsciously tighten her grip. It wasn't until just as the sun began to rise and shine through the window that Sprout found himself with a little room to move. Sunny had started to roll over, but hadn't dragged him to the other side of the bed yet. He was laying almost evenly with her, only one foreleg clutching tightly. His first instinct was to wiggle out and run again. When he felt his phantom limbs spasm in pain, Sprout wouldn't be getting far on his own, nor would he be doing it quickly. If he were to drag himself all the way to Maritime Bay and rescue, he would need more than a head start. He would need to kill Sunny. A few weeks ago, Sprout wouldn't have killed any pony. Sure, he'd have conquered them, but that was different than killing. He was saving the town. But now he found himself placing his forelegs around Sunny's neck without hesitation, using a sleeper hold that he and Hitch had learned when they joined the sheriff's department. And unlike in the officer training, he didn't release his grip. With one foreleg locking the other down, Sunny's face began to bulge, and he could see the veins of her neck expand with each heartbeat, the blood trapped inside them, the arteries increasing, the pressure to her head, and the veins not allowing the blood back out. She began to thrash as soon as the haze of sleep lifted and Sprout tightened his grip. He wasn't sure if it was her airway or the blood flow or some combination of the two, but in under 20 seconds it was done. Sunny had stopped moving and Sprout released his vice-like grip and rolled over towards the edge of the bed. He fell off onto the floor and felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Dragging himself to the nearby wastebasket, he knocked it over and started to dry heave into it. After taking a minute to regain his composure and wipe the tears from his face, he started to drag himself across the room to the stairs. Each step he pulled himself down sent a jolt of pain through his stallionhood and the 2 stubby legs. The pain renewed in the missing limbs, and it wasn't until he reached the bottom of the stairs and looked back he saw why. The sutures had come undone, and he'd left a bright crimson trail of blood leading down the stairway. Sprout couldn't stop now, no matter how much it hurt. Even as the carpet burned his underside, he continued to pull himself towards the front door and freedom. Then came his next challenge. He had to balance himself on his butt and try to reach up to the door lock. It took a couple of tries before he was able to unlatch it. Sprout fell backward, the door slowly opening, and got his first breath of fresh air. "Sprout?" a concerned voice shouted. He froze in fear. A moment later, Hitch pulled his way through the door, looking down at the battered and bloody stallion. "What the fuck? Are you okay? Is Sonny okay? Who did this?" Sprout shook his head. "No, it was Sonny. She's insane." Hitch tilted his head in confusion when an orange blur tackled him in the side, knocking him into the wall. With a harsh-sounding zip, a double-layered plastic bag was sealed over his head by a thick zip tie. Hitch was quick to react on instinct, striking out with a hoof at the attacker, but not hitting anything. He then focused on tearing the bag off his head. While in his confused state, he didn't realize the takedown hold was being used on him until it was too late. There was the sound of zip ties again, and his forelegs were bound behind his back. Hitch began to kick his hind legs wildly until they too were zip-tied. He lay there squirming and struggling, feeling the plastic bite into his flesh as he struggled to free his limbs and take the bag off his head. "You!" Sonny screamed at Sprout. Her nose was bleeding and her forehead's veins still distended. Sprout realized he must have screwed up yet again and not held the choke hold long enough. He looked between her and his friend Hitch and started rolling himself back onto his belly to crawl over and get the bag off his head. He knew there'd be no fighting her off. But if he could free Hitch, there might be a chance. The bag was fogging up now, rapidly expanding and contracting around Hitch's head. Sprout couldn't see through all the mist, but he could see the way the entire bag collapsed into his mouth with each panicked breath. He clawed at the zip tie with his hooves and was about to try biting the bag when the world blacked out for a moment. There was a ringing in his ears and the entire room was spinning around. "This is all!" There was another loud bang and Sprout felt his head bounce off the floor. "Yaw!" Another bang. The room spun faster. "Fault!" A fourth strike. Sprout couldn't lift his head. He knew something was wrong, but he couldn't remember what. He saw the floor was bright red. Had Sonny gotten a rug? He could hear an angry voice, but didn't understand the words. His world was reduced to pain, not in his body, but in his head. The pressure and pain continued to build as blood trickled out of his mouth, nose and ears. He couldn't move anything. Sprout could only stare ahead at Hitch. Hitch, the one pony that had never gave up looking for him, had almost rescued him. The bag over his head wasn't expanding anymore. Instead, it would contract at regular intervals, almost like hiccups. The twitching and breathing weren't coordinated anymore. Perhaps it was some small mercy then, that when the cast iron frying pan came down one final time, Sprout ceased to exist. There wasn't a word to describe the amount of discomfort he was in. His mouth was dry as cotton, his limbs ached, his head felt like it wanted to split open several times over and eject its contents. None of his legs seemed to obey his commands to move. His eyes couldn't quite focus. Finally, after what felt like a long waking dream where he was paralysed, Hitch finally became aware of the room he was in. It was dark, save for the orange dancing glow of some sort of furnace or fireplace. There were relics, skeletons, maps, and more adorning two walls like some sort of museum. He groggily rolled his head over, looking around for any sign of another pony to explain what was going on. Sunny was standing there next to him, smiling. We've got a lot to talk about, Hitch. But first, Earth Pony Cupcake? They're fresh out of the oven.
Sunny.